Trying to put all the pieces in the right places.
But in the air for out number one.
Well, no execution there from the Cardinals side of things.
So finish him off. Get that first out. 0-2. And through the wickets. Baez can't smother that, and Texas has no need to bunt. Pedro's had a few get by him in recent days. And popped up. And Berger at first will squeeze that, and the Rangers with a 3-run ninth inning have won the series.
You have to execute at a really high level to win a big league game. We didn't do that. We didn't deserve to win that game. If you end up snatching it at the end there, that's fine, but you're not proud of the way the kind of game unfolds. You have to execute at a much higher rate to be consistent at this level. That's just bottom line.
Some candid answers there last night from Ollie Marmol after the game alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK. Audio courtesy of Cardinals TV. Alex, Cardinals lose last night 7-4 against the Texas Rangers. It wasn't so much the score of the game. It wasn't so much the fact that they lost the game that bothered me. It was the way they played. The lack of execution from guys who have to execute in those spots is what frustrated me more than anything else. And we'll get to the Fermin, the Velazquez, that part of it all coming up here in just a little bit. We'll get that here in about 10 minutes. 314-399-9646. That is the Air Comfort Service text line. The spots that bothered me most were twofold. One, if you're going to be in the game and your role is to be defense first and executing bunts, if you're Victor Scott II, you've got to be able to execute the bunt when asked to do so. And last night he failed in that spot. I like Vic. I hope he becomes a legit major leaguer. It's not working for him at the plate right now, and in some scenarios you can live with that. But when you're batting 193 and you spent all offseason telling everybody that this is the exact scenario that you have been preparing for, well, when that scenario presents itself, you've got to execute. And instead he popped out and wasn't able to advance the runner. That can't happen. And then for Pedro Baez, who is here because of his defensive value. You were in there in the ninth inning because of all of the defensive shifts that they had to make. I understand them. It was the right way to go about it if you're Ollie Marmol. But part of the reason why you're able to do so with the runner for Jimmy Crooks in the inning prior is because you trust that Pedro Baez is going to come in, and you've actually upgraded defensively behind the plate by bringing him in for the ninth inning with Riley O'Brien. Well, it's an 0-2 count. You have called for a slider. You know your pitcher is one that does not have the greatest command. You've got to block the ball, man. That's it. That's your job. That's why you're in the game if you're Pedro Baez. If you can't do this, what are you here for, man? What is your value? You're the third catcher. You're really good at game planning, and you're supposed to be great defensively. But as you heard on the call, it's not just my opinion on the matter. It's also coming from the guy that is paid by the Cardinals to do their TV broadcasts. He's had a lot of that this year, where he doesn't put his body in front of the ball. What exactly would you say you do here then? So my frustration last night was centered on those two plays in particular. Vic not getting the bunt down because that's your role. Remember a few years ago, they benched Harrison Bader in a game because he didn't bust it down the line. Well, Bader, if you're not going to bust it down the line, what are you doing? What is your value? That is your role. So we're going to bench you for it. Vic, if you can't get the bunt down, what do you do? Pedro Baez, if you can't put your body in front of the ball, what do you do? That was as frustrating of a loss as the Cardinals have had all season long, in my opinion, Alex. Yeah. What did you see last night?
I mean, everything that you saw. Like, the bunt is what the game was lost, it felt like, once that bunt didn't get laid down. And it's weird to say because the Cardinals have the ability to come back and especially win in late innings. They've done so all season. But the offense has just lacked this stretch for you, and it felt like in an opportune moment, and frankly in back-to-back innings when you had the opportunity to take the lead and you let it slip away, you felt like this game was going to slip through their fingers. And then once that passed ball went through Pedro Pages, you just felt the energy sucked out of that stadium. And that's the problem right now for the Cardinals. You can't make little mistakes. Your offense doesn't allow you to make little mistakes right now. Your pitching at times doesn't allow you to make little mistakes. Sure, you can look at the game that was blown up with Riley O'Brien on the mound, but that inning down spiraled once Pedro Pages did not block the ball. And it's a hard thing to have to make sure you're perfect on in the city of St. Louis, but when you had Yadier Molina, didn't let anything get by you, and that's the standard of what they have. So when there's a standard set, and Ollie has made that very clear, when he was on with us, he made it very clear, these guys are going to go out there and work their asses off for you. Not that they're not working in that scenario, but you don't come through in a moment when it's just completely tactical baseball of laying down a bunt to move the runner over to third base or to block a wild pitch that you know the guy is not going to have the command on. That's just lacking the areas that help you win baseball games. And frankly, that's why you lost that baseball game. So I'm glad Ollie said what we all saw. It was a game that you had no reason winning because you didn't do the little things correct. And when you're this baseball team, you have to be a perfect baseball team.
Exactly. And I know people get on to us where they're like, base running mistakes, defensive mistakes. Every team that has those issues, they're going to struggle. Sure, some of them can overcome those issues, though, because of the talent, where you just out blue chip your opposition. The Dodgers can have a bad night on the bases. They can have a bad night defensively. They can even have a bad night by their bullpen. But they've got Shohei Ohtani on the mound, and they've got that top 5 in their lineup, and it doesn't matter because they hit 5 homers over the course of the evening. That is not something that the Cardinals can rely upon. The Cardinals have to out-execute the opposition every night.
The Brewers do it to perfection. Like, they've got elite pitching, but guess what? When their pitching has a bad night or their offense doesn't come through, they're going to be elite defensively and elite on the base paths.
And when your manager has come out and said, this is our identity as a team, it has to be exhausting to play us. That is the only way that we can have success as a team in 2026. And I think he's right on that, by the way. And for the vast majority of the season, they've done a really good job of that. I would say lately, there have been some lapses, and there have been a few games where you've noticed it. But when you don't play that way, you can feel it as a Cardinals fan watching them right now because it stands out like a sore thumb. And then all of the other issues become magnified. When you don't block the ball, when you don't get the bunt down, when you do have a couple of other defensive lapses or base running issues or individual moments where there's a runner on third, fewer than 2 outs, and you don't get him in, when you have that stuff start to show up or you don't take the extra base when it's there for you, the extra 90 feet, now suddenly the lack of power, the lack of a bottom half of the order, the lack of a true dominant starting rotation, some of the holes that happen or exist right now within the bullpen, that stuff really starts to be magnified. So that's what I think happened last night, is you felt all of the other stuff because the one thing you've been able to hang your hat on almost every night this season, it didn't show up. And they had a bad night at the ballpark, especially in the last 3 or 4 innings of that game.
And I think to what you said of where it started to become kind of a, I wouldn't call it a theme, but it's starting to pop up a little bit more. Ollie Marmol doesn't call them out post-game if it's not a one-off, right? I feel like it's been going on for, I'd say, the last 3 weeks, because I think we talked about this in the Pirates series. That's the one that I would pinpoint as it really started there, and that was 3 weeks ago. They're 4-9 over their last 13 games. And I haven't felt like, look, it's one thing not to hit, not to come through in runners in scoring position, to have a bad pitching performance from somebody out of the pen. I haven't felt like they've played clean, crisp Cardinals baseball for the last 13 games, not consistently. You know, they have a couple games where they play well. They make a couple defensive plays last night that are really nice by Mason Wynn.
God, he looks good defensively again.
Consistently, though, it doesn't feel like they are constantly doing what you're talking about. Laying down the bunt when it matters the most. Blocking a ball when it matters the most. You know, making a couple defensive plays when they need them to. They've just been a little lackluster in that. And typically, this is one of those things that doesn't slump, right? Defense typically doesn't slump. We'll see if they're able to pull themselves out of this or if this is them starting to fall back down to earth.
Somebody on the text line brought up the Nolan Gorman home run, 314-399-9646. That is the Air Comfort Service text line.
I don't see that anywhere.
From the 314, let's get out of the way, BK. Yes, Gorman homered, the reverse BKO. You should try to do that more often.
I don't see that text on here.
I don't either. You just pulled it out.
That was one of those. It's down a little further.
It's real down there.
11:07. Time check brought to you by Clarkson Jewelers, an officially licensed Rolex jeweler. It's 11:15.
It's weird. It must have got deleted.
It was 11:07, right when we got in for the show.
Oh, I see it now. Okay, it is a real text.
Damn it, T-Bone.
I thought it was fake.
That was one of the easiest calls in the history of Major League Baseball. You can't predict baseball. You could predict that one. None of us wanted him in the lineup. Nobody wanted to see him anymore. He's a right-handed starter on the mound. That way, who has some home run issues, especially against lefties this year. It's like the one thing that you can really get him with. That was a clear-cut spot for Nolan Gorman, where he's going to earn himself a few extra starts at the third base position because of what took place last night, just to drive all of us a little more crazy. That was a clear spot where he's going to hit a homer.
Apparently spewing hatred towards an individual of how their performances actually benefits them because it brings the best out of them. So maybe we just need to do a little Michael Jordan towards Nolan Gorman.
Do you think he starts tonight?
I don't think he should.
No, I don't think so. Lefty, I don't think they'll do it. I don't say that
Probably
with confidence,
will.
but
I think they do.
You going to call for another home run?
No, not against Mackenzie Gore.
what?
No.
Come on. Put some money on it. You didn't last night.
Gore does have some reverse splits.
Okay.
There you go.
Put some money on it.
I think you will get the start. And it's just because when you home run like that, you got to see if you can add more fuel to that fire of like, hey, you got out of it. Can you continue to build off of it? Frankly, it's a great test for Ollie to Nolan Gorman.
Yeah.
Like, hey, man, you were struggling really bad. You hit the home run. How do you build off of it?
I think this is a spot where they start him in part because they don't have a great alternative. Because if you're going to,
can play there, man.
I know, but I think they might go with Sajasi in left and Fermin in center. They could also potentially give Alec Burleson a day off. He has not had many lately. I think the last one was like 3 weeks ago. And I know tomorrow is an off day, but we all know how they like to do this, where they buy the 48 hours off instead of just having that one day. Now, that changes a bit because you lost the first 2 games of this series. So does Burleson go to Ollie and say, hey, I know today was a designated off day for me. I'm fine. I want to go out there and play, but it's also against a lefty, and Burleson's mostly been pretty terrible against lefties this year. So they've got some interesting decisions with the lineup today. My guess is you see Gorman in the lineup.
I endorse not putting Victor Scott in center field. If you can't lay down the bunt, man, I think you have to be punished a little bit.
I would be okay with it, too. I think this could be a day where you get center field for Fermin, left field for Sajasi, designated hitter is Velazquez, and then you go with your normal infield. I could see something like that.
I mean, I don't think you should with Gorman against a lefty, but I also don't think Burleson should be in there against a lefty, especially for how much he's played. So you really got to.
In that case, Pajes gets your first base spot.
And who wants to see that?
Apparently you.
Yeah. No, I just want to be right for once. I think that's probably the best way to go with this one, to where you just keep Gorman in. And frankly, as much as I don't think he should be getting the opportunity, because Blaze Jordan had himself another good game last night for Memphis, which let's just keep the Blaze tracker going for the rest of the season. It is a season of figuring it out. And after a slump and you hit a big home run like that for Nolan Gorman, how do you build off of it? Because if you go 0 for 3 for tonight with 3 strikeouts, I think you kind of have your answers.
314-399-9646. That is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. You can check us out on YouTube, as always, at youtube.com/101ESPNSTL. Coming up in about 15 minutes, Ivan Barbashev scored again last night. Is there a lesson from his departure here in St. Louis? We'll get into that here in just a little bit. But next, Cardinals had a really interesting managerial moment yesterday. We have not seen a ton of these in 2026 just because of, the season that this is. Would you have done this the same way Ollie did last night? I want to get into that next year on 101 ESPN. It is time for you to unlock your inner champion. It is time for you to regain your vitality, and the place to do so is with Victory Men's Health. Check them out today online at victorymenshealth.com. When you go over there, you'll see just what they have to offer, and there is a lot that they have to offer you, whether that's testosterone optimization, weight loss that you're trying to lose, sexual health. If you need a little bit of boost for you, they can help you out with that at Victory Men's Health. Online at victorymenshealth.com. That is where you book your first appointment. Put in your name, email, phone number, tell them BK with 101 ESPN sent you, and then you can book that first appointment online today. It's an incredibly easy process, and it is going to be able to unlock your inner champion with lab work on your first initial visit. Then you're going to be able to get in there and talk with a licensed medical provider. When you do that, they'll be able to put together a personalized plan for you. Again, whether that's low testosterone or weight loss goals that you're trying to meet. Maybe you do need some help with sexual health. You can do that all at Victory Men's Health. It's time for you to unlock your inner champion today. Do it at victorymenshealth.com.
And Beeks will face a Cardinals pinch hitter. It's Nelson Velasquez who grabs a bat here. Fly ball gets you the lead. First and third, nobody out. 0-2. And Velasquez can't connect. He's down on strikes. And Mason chased up and out of the strike zone. Didn't get a fastball. And Beeks with 2 quick strikeouts turns things over to Jose Fermin. Fermin's going to grab a bat and hit for Gorman here. Swing, drive, hit hard toward left, but caught.
It was an interesting moment in the game last night. It took place in the 7th inning. Runners on first and third, tie ball game. Excuse me, 8th inning.
Do you even watch the game, man?
No, it was the 7th. Bottom of the 7th inning. Nathan Eovaldi has left the game. It's first and third. Nobody out. I do apologize. I'm going back and forth between a couple of different things. First and third, nobody out. It's Torres that is ready to come up, right? They go to the bullpen. They bring in a lefty. Ollie counters by going with Nelson Velasquez in that spot. Again, nobody out, and you go to Velasquez with Mason Wynn and Nolan Gorman due up. I want to get your opinion on this, Alex, because I agreed with the bats that they deployed in this spot, Nelson Velasquez and Jose Fermin. I disagreed with the order in which they used them. With nobody out and a runner on third, I want contact there. I understand that the opposing pitcher has a low strikeout rate. I don't know how much that matters for Nelson Velasquez because he's going to strike out regardless of what the opposing pitch has to offer. Here was Ollie Marmol's. I want to play this first before we give you our counter. Here was Ollie Marmol's explanation on why he went Nelson Velasquez first. Then you've got Mason Wynn and ultimately went with Jose Fermin in favor of Nolan Gorman.
Yeah, you can switch it. We talked a decent amount before the situation presented itself. You can go Fermin, who has more contact than Velasquez, but at the same time, when you have a low punch guy on the mound, you're not really worried about the swing and miss. And if you happen to go into worst case scenario where both guys punch out, then you want the guy that actually puts more balls in play and more contact in with 2 outs and that runner still in scoring position. So you can argue just do it out the gate, but then Velasquez, who has the most swing and miss, hits with 2 outs if you don't advance them. So you take your pick.
I viewed it as kind of the opposite. Now, this is one of those where I'm not sure there's like a true right or wrong answer, but just for my sensibilities, I thought it was a really interesting managerial moment there in the game because it is it's tied at 4. You've got a real opportunity here to be able to cash in on these runs. You're going to the best dudes coming out of your bullpen. Ultimately, maybe it didn't matter because the Riley O'Brien situation ain't great right now for the Cardinals either. But in that spot, if you do scratch across at least a run, you're going into the 8th inning up with Soriano and O'Brien coming in. You're feeling pretty good about yourself with that being the case. They go with Velazquez first and then Wynn/Fermin. I would have gone Fermin first there, Alex, because my priority is to get that run from third in. That is the number one thing that I would be prioritizing there. And the best way to do so is with the ball in play. Even if you end up with a double play ball there, where Fermin hits it on the ground, it's a double play, it's frustrating. You can live with that because at least you get the run in. And now I'm up 5-4 with Mason Wynn coming up, and then potentially still going to your bench with Velazquez coming up after Mason Wynn if you're able to get Wynn on. So that's the way that I would have gone about it. I thought that the priority there was on contact, and Velazquez just doesn't really provide that. I understand Velazquez had really good numbers against lefties in the minors. You've got a pitcher on the mound that doesn't have a good strikeout rate, but I just didn't trust Velazquez to come through there. And maybe that's my Royals fan showing through, where I've seen what that looks like.
Understandably so for how the Royals have performed.
How did you feel as you watched that inning unfold, Alex?
I really didn't have any ties to either hitter. I saw the text that you guys were going back and forth with, and I understood exactly what you were saying, but I just think Ollie looked at this as let's end the game here. Like, I think Ollie was going a little bit of selfishness there, which isn't supposed to sound as bad as it does. But I think in that scenario, the Rangers were reeling because they just gave up 2 runs. They had Eovaldi pulled, and they were in a position to where it was like, oh, this game can down spiral on us. And I think in that spot, Ollie's looking at it as, look, we've got 2 guys on with no outs. Let's put our big hitter right here, because if he mashes a home run in this position to where all the momentum's on our side, this game's over. We're up by 3. We're feeling great, and it doesn't matter what happens after that. And if for some reason he strikes out, well, I've got 2 more outs with Mason Wynn and Jose Fermin coming up that can make contact for me, at least I hope. Now, it didn't go that direction. I just think he was looking at it as, look, we've got a guy who can mash a home run for us. His role is to be here to support and bring some power, put him in this position to succeed. We've got 2 other outs with only 1 out if Velazquez struggles to see if we can drive this runner home. Worst case scenario, he makes contact and he pops it up and we get the guy run there. So I totally see where you're coming from. I would have been fine with Fermin in that spot. But honestly, my initial reaction was, hey, man, it didn't work out. He brought Velazquez up to be power off of the bench, to be an option for you. He came into a situation that you wanted to see if he can thrive in, and he failed.
From the 7-2-0, generally with 0 outs, you try to play for the big inning there. If you got 1 out, you play for the single run. I understand that too. The thing is, with the 1 out, you potentially do have to have serious concern about the double play ball, and that's where I would prioritize a fly ball out, in which case you probably go to Nelson Velazquez there because he's got the higher fly ball rate. With nobody out there, runners on the corners, you're in a tie ball game. I think that's the other thing. If you're up by a run, maybe it's a different conversation here where you do play for the big inning, but when you're in a tie ball game and you've got your 2 best relievers, theoretically speaking, coming in the next 2 innings, I think I play for the run, just the 1 run. And then I've got the opportunity still behind them for a big inning, depending on what happens with Jose Fermin, because I've got Mason Wynn, who's been really good this season against lefties coming up, and I've got the opportunity to then deploy Nelson Velazquez off of the bench as well for Nolan Gorman. So I would have gone about it the opposite direction. I do get, in theory, the way that they went. I just think the strikeout possibility was hard to ignore in that spot for the Cardinals. T-Bone, how did you view it?
Yeah, I get the Fermin angle on it. I think I side on what Ollie ended up doing, which was going with Velazquez. And I understand what you're saying with the strikeout numbers for Velazquez. That is very much a real thing, and it definitely makes you kind of have to prop up the lefty on the mound a little bit with his strikeout percentage, which wasn't great. But I think it's twofold. It's one, in that opportunity, actually threefold. One, it's like Alex said, you got a chance to really open up the game if you can come through with a really big hit from Velasquez. Two, I look at that and I go, okay, who's the bigger fly ball percentage guy? It is Velasquez in that scenario. So if he does make an out, hopefully it's a fly ball and that can potentially bring home that run from third. And then I've got one out with a runner on base and I've got the lead with Wynn coming up. And then the other thing for me in the third one is if you look at their careers against lefties, Fermin's not good against lefties. He's actually a reverse splits guy. He is much better against right-handed pitching. I know they've given him starts against lefties this year, and he started out well against them. He's come back more towards his career norms. Meanwhile, when you look at Velasquez in his career, he's 8% above league average against left-handed pitching. So he's in the role that, as Alex said, he was called up here to do. So I'm going to go to him in that scenario. And it didn't work out. And I think the other thought process is, okay, well, if he does strike out, at least we've got Wynn coming up next. And I know a lot of people would say, I can't believe you just said that. Well, Wynn's been good against lefties, as you had just made reference to. So my hope is, well, if Velasquez does strike out, at least I've got Wynn who should be able to put this ball in play. And then Wynn didn't execute and strikes out. And now at that point, it doesn't really matter for me. And basically, your plan's gone to hell. It's not going to end up working out potentially. So I don't mind the decision. I understand the Fermin angle because you're right. The strikeout numbers for Velasquez are
30%,
real.
by the way, even against lefties.
I get it. I was hoping more for, I would play okay, he's a fly ball guy, and in his career he's been above league average against lefties. I'm going to go with him compared to Fermin, that is a ground ball guy, which doesn't necessarily mean you bring home the run on a ground ball, right? You hit that towards third or first, there's a chance they could cut down the runner at home compared to go for a double play. I would play the percentages on a fly ball. I get it may not be deep enough for a run. I would prefer to go that route with Velasquez. From
the 618, that left-handed reliever was 70 points higher in batting average against left-handed hitters. Only analytics Ollie knows is lefty versus lefty is bad. Schumacher snookered him. I think it's really important to have context in those kinds of numbers. Typically for a lefty reliever, you're coming in against left-handed hitters, which means he's getting the hardest possible assignments. So I think there is important context there on which lefties are hitting him well. My guess is you're seeing a whole hell of a lot of great lefties from the AL West that are going up against him. Specifically, Yordan Alvarez. Like, he's coming in for those moments, and good luck. Yeah, everybody's going to have bad numbers against those kinds of guys. So, yes, he is better against righties than he is against lefties, but I think there's some important context. I view those numbers as being more meaningful, especially when you're looking at them against starters, where you're going to have like real big sample size on either side. Against a reliever like this, he's typically going up against three guys per night. You're not going to have huge sample size numbers either way, and those numbers can get a little out of whack. So that's something else that I would take into account here. But his strikeout rate, regardless, is pretty damn low. That's a spot where if you're Nelson Velasquez, you got to come through. I would say the bigger problem there is Mason Wynn not coming through. Yeah. Like, if we're talking about what really mattered in that spot, it was Wynn. Yep. The managerial decision was interesting to me. The biggest spot where they had to come through and didn't was one out, runners on the corners. One of your best players comes up, especially against left-handed pitchers rather, in Mason Wynn, and he wasn't able to come through, which speaks to their issues overall this season with runners in scoring position. It is once again a problem. 3 for 14 last night. Came into the game last night with a 222 average with runners in scoring position. They do have the 11th most opportunities with runners in scoring position, which is great. They're getting guys on. They're getting them over. They're just not getting them in. Dead last in Major League Baseball in batting average with runners in scoring position this season. That's not going to work. And they're 27th in Major League Baseball in slugging percentage.
Well, and that's incredible because I looked this up because when you sent those numbers, I've known they've had their struggles as runners in scoring position, but I just got to tell you, I feel great when 1 through 4 comes up through the lineup. So I was like, surely they haven't been bad in runners in scoring position, right? And I looked it up today. 1 through 4 in your lineup. So your Weatherholt, Herrera, Burley, Walker. What are their numbers in runners scoring position combined? 276 average, which is 7th best in Major League Baseball from 1 through 4 position. 376 on base, 7th best. 444 slug, 8th best. 820 OPS, 9th best. By the way, those slugging OPS numbers are higher than the Dodgers' top 4 with runners in scoring position. So really what this is a
World Series bound.
It's not your top 4 that's killing you with runners in scoring position. It's that spot that we saw last night with runners at the corners and nobody out. 5 through 9. If those are the numbers that are being dragged all the way down to the bottom, 5 through 9 is awful. with runners in scoring position this season.
And I feel like we've felt that all season. The guys that come up in the biggest spots are your 4 best hitters. And the ones that don't, when it's not Walker, Herrera, Burleson, or Weatherhold, your team is typically going to fail. And I said this in the office, and I feel the exact same way now. We were acting as if this team could compete for a World Series or could do damage in the playoffs, I would be screaming from the mountaintops that the runners in scoring position is abysmal and we need to stop this magic show. But they're not.
This magic show?
It's magic show. You ever been to a magic show, BK, where they try and show you the magic trick and you think it's amazing, but really it's just sleight of hand? You got to know what they're doing over there. This isn't it.
Spoiler.
I know. Sorry, man. I ruined it for everybody. This is what they are. And they weren't expected to be a great team. You're 1 through 4, having those numbers and runners in scoring position, man, that's awesome. But guess what? For a rebuilding team, you're still waiting for 2 or 3 guys that can help you out.
I've got the numbers for your 5 through 9.
They cannot be as bad as what BK and I just looked up.
So Victor Scott on the season, everybody wants him replaced in the lineup, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
He's batting 193. You're 5 through 9 in the order with runners in scoring position, batting 175 on the season. Victor Scott, again, people want him replaced, right, Alex? Yeah. On base percentage on the season, 258. It's one of the worst in Major League Baseball. You're 5 through 9 with runners in scoring position, on base percentage, 238. Victor Scott cannot hit for slug, cannot do it. 262 slugging percentage on the season. Your 5 through 9 with runners in scoring position are slugging 268. In other words, OPS for Victor Scott on the year, 520. OPS for your 5 through 9 with runners in scoring position on the season, 505. They are worse than the guy that everybody agrees is not a major league caliber hitter on the year. Your 5 through 9, once you have a runner on second or third, become a worse hitter overall than Victor Scott in 2026. That's not going to work.
And that's what a rebuilding team looks like when you're waiting for 2 or 3 more hitters in your organization to fill that depth.
We would agree the Twins are rebuilding, right? 5 through 9, they have the best numbers with runners in scoring position.
I would also argue that's completely unsustainable.
I agree, but my point on their rebuilding, this is what we should have expected, is Mason Wynn should be better. Nolan Gorman should be better. Victor Scott shouldn't be a black hole in the lineup. You know, Pages, Crooks shouldn't be.
Sure, but look at the replacements you have internally for those guys. Like, you're talking about Joshua Baez in one of those positions. You're talking about Reyno Rodriguez in one of those positions. The only one that what you just said is true on is Mason Wynn. And we've discussed in the past that Mason Wynn might just be a glove-only guy.
God. I just looked up Victor Scott's numbers with runners in scoring position.
Why would you do that to yourself?
Holy smokes,
well,
boys.
Considering that they asked him to bunt with a runner in scoring position, I'd say no, those numbers aren't good.
Holy smokes. What would you guess? He has 45 plate appearances with runners in scoring position, 33 at-bats, though. What would you guess? How many hits do you think he has with a runner in scoring position out of 33 at-bats?
2.
I think it's that low because I was talking with someone about this in the press box.
2 or 3 is my guess.
I'm thinking 3.
3. He is 3 for 33. That's not enough, though. Pedro Pages has 33 at-bats with runners in scoring position as well.
1.
How many hits do you think he has?
I say 1.
I'll go 4. I think he's got more.
3.
Wow.
Excuse me, 4. Sorry, 3 singles.
How many
he does have a home run.
How many hits does Pozo have?
So they are 7 for 66 with runners in scoring position.
That's not a good number on the
That's where the numbers are coming from. Mason Wynn on the year is not good in these spots. He's batting 205 here, but that's at least like you can live with it, kind of. Those two are batting a combined like 100.
Out of curiosity, what is Church in those situations? Because that's the bat that's been pulled out of the
222. He's batted. He's 6 for 27. So he ain't great.
Is he slugging in those 6 hits?
He has 3 doubles.
Okay, I was gonna say I feel like he had done some damage. So I mean that's
your replacement for Victor Scott. That's your replacement for Victor Scott when he returns.
Vic and Pages have combined for 10 RBIs in 84 plate appearances with runners in scoring position. 10.
Hey, to be fair, it's more RBIs than I was expecting. He read off 7 total hits.
Man.
How many of those were bunts?
Victor Scott has 1 sacrifice fly and 7 sacrifice bunts with runners in scoring position.
7 sacrifice bunts.
Yep.
Well, we got to move him to third.
Quite good last night.
Hey, I just read off what 1 through 4 is. It makes sense.
Coming up in 10 minutes, we'll get into questions and answers. But next, is there a lesson from the Ivan Barbashev situation for the Blues? We'll get into that next year on 101 ESPN.
Tanner Henderickson here with the Sports Center update brought to you by Universal Windows Direct. Cardinals fall to the Rangers last night 7-4. Game 3, their 3-game set will be tonight as they try to avoid being swept at home. 6:45 will be first pitch. Mackenzie Gore will be on the mound for Texas. Andre Palante will get the start for St. Louis. And tonight here on 101 ESPN, Game 1 of the NBA Finals for you with pregame coverage starting at 6:30, tip-off at 7:30. This Sports Center update was brought to you by Universal Windows Direct. You'll be saying, I love my windows.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. So, Alex, last night, the Vegas Golden Knights come back. They end up winning Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final. First of all, are you ready to revise your prediction?
No.
Still going Hurricanes in 6?
I saw people acting as if the series over. I'm like, guys, Hurricanes got blown out in the first game against Montreal, and they came back to win the next 4. They'll be fine.
I don't know that their defense is going to hold up well against this
That was
talent.
a shot. I mean, their goaltending is probably the biggest concern because Frederik Andersen, I think I saw, has a career .885 save percentage in conference final games and Stanley Cup finals. So a little concerning there. But no, that game was, first of all, so much fun to watch. Second of all, that was a game of mistakes by both sides, and you got to limit your mistakes, and that's what Carolina's going to need to do. I still say Hurricanes in 6.
Well, Barbie tied the game up about 30 seconds into the second period. He scored yet another goal, which is just his thing. In the playoffs, you can count on him to be one of the best players in the league suddenly. Mm-hmm. He has a style that performs in this point of the season. He has 6 goals and 13 points and is a +4 for the Vegas Golden Knights so far in the postseason. The Blues decided to move on from him at the deadline in 2023. It was something that I thought at the time was the right move. They got a former first-round pick in return in Zach Dean. Now, that is not gone as anybody would have hoped, but I thought it was the right move at the time. I think it is now very clear it was not. They could have given him a 5-year deal worth $5 million per season, and we'd be looking at that contract right now as an absolute steal for the St. Louis Blues. He's a consistent 20-goal scorer. He's a consistent 50-ish point producer for the Vegas Golden Knights, and he plays the exact kind of style. He is basically Pius Suter, but better.
Yeah.
And bigger, more physical, can play all over your lineup, up and down, in the middle. Like, he can do anything for you. Is there a lesson from the Ivan Barbashev, what I would consider to be mistake by the St. Louis Blues in trading him away instead of keeping him around for the Blues to learn in the future?
Yeah, I would consider it a massive mistake as well, especially when you think of the guys that they tried to replace that with Kevin Hayes and Jakub Vrana and Kasperi Kapanen. Barbashev would have made the most sense. To me, the biggest lesson is for a player that has that style to where he's got an offensive upside and ability, and he plays the same brand of hockey every single night to where you know what to expect, you don't walk away from those players. My tinfoil theory is the Blues probably looked at Barbashev and said, this guy's style is not going to be able to stay healthy for the remainder of this contract, and let's get a younger player in return while we try and veer in a different direction. He has stayed healthy throughout his entire time with Vegas. He's been the same player, and for $5 million, that's the guy you want. He was always an offensive upside guy. He was one of the best players in their minor leagues before they called him up. So my lesson on that, and when you look around the National Hockey League, guys that have that style and profile, you just don't walk away from. A couple that come to mind for me. One is Chris Kunitz. I don't know if people remember this guy. He was a staple for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Was never more than a 40 to 50 point performer, but he was always a guy that Pittsburgh said, we got to keep him because he works so well with Sidney Crosby, and he plays a style that's gritty in the playoffs. Tom Wilson is another one. And if you look at the stats for Tom Wilson and Barbashev, they're about a 3-point per game difference in the last 7 years. You just don't walk away from that style. So the brand that the Blues want to play now with their players, Barbashev is that to a T. If you think about how many guys on this Blues roster that you know what they're going to bring on a nightly basis, how many can you name? Like, I know how many, I know how that guy will play tonight 2 weeks from before that game even plays.
I think you can say that about Broberg. I think you can say that about Holloway, Snuggerud, Jake Neighbors more often than not. Joel Hofer, I think you're getting a pretty good, adequate performance out of.
Parayko. I think
probably Parayko. Those are probably the guys.
So of the
that I would
forwards, you
pinpoint.
mentioned Holloway, Snuggerud, and Neighbors.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. I don't think there's anybody else. Braden Shen at the time, you knew what he was going to bring.
And that doesn't mean they're going to be good, but I know the style. I know
what they're going to do.
The effort, all that
That's
stuff.
who Ivan Barbashev is. So, in my opinion, when a guy is still at, 27 years old, you don't walk away from that because that style always works in the NHL.
From the 3-1-4, you can't consider it a mistake just because we now have hindsight. The trade at the time made perfect sense. That's what I said. I argued for that trade prior to them making it at the deadline that season. I thought it was the right call. It has not worked, and so now I think you can call it a mistake. I would say at the time, I thought it was right to trade for Marcell Ozuna. It was very clearly a mistake. John Mozeliak has told us that is the biggest mistake, the one that he would like to go back on from his career as the president of baseball operations for the St. Louis Cardinals. If he can say that, I think we can go ahead and say this here with the Blues. It was a mistake. And they ended up using that money to pay other guys that were not as good as Ivan Barbashev. And he ended up being in the same age range as what they could have used over the last few seasons. I would say this, though, Alex, as my counterpoint to what you just said. I think that it is good to have some of those guys. My pushback would be if you always keep those guys internally, I think you eventually make some mistakes in that way too, where you've locked yourself into mediocre production for above that kind of price. And like maybe the next one doesn't work out the same way that Ivan Barbashev has. And instead of getting a player that is Ivan Barbashev right now, you end up with a player that is, 50% of this. Yeah. So there are also guys that are similar to Barbie in this role that don't go on to have this kind of success. I would say for me, I underestimated his talent. That's the lesson for him, is that a lot of people said, hey, this is a guy that really does have more scoring punch and more overall playmaking ability than what you're giving it credit for. And I looked at the shooting percentage from 2022 and said, that's unsustainable. He's not going to be able to keep that up. It regressed in 2023. That's why he had lesser numbers in 2023. And I was like, yeah, this is what I was talking about. It's not going to be the same as it was in 2022. Well, guess what? It hasn't always been that. Yeah,
turns out when
now
you play
he's just shooting more, and so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it turns out when you play with Josh Levo and Tyler Pitlick and Nola Chari, it doesn't always benefit you.
100%. And I think that's part of the story here, too, is look at who these guys are playing with. And that would be my lesson for Jordan Kyrou. It's a very different style of player, but I think part of why I missed on Barbie is because of his line mates. And I think part of what might lead to Jordan Kyrou going on to have more success elsewhere if they trade him this offseason is because of his line mates. So that would be my lesson to learn here is, hey, pay attention to some of the context as to how the production is taking place. And the opposite could be true, too. Hey, if a guy's playing with Connor McDavid, he's probably going to have slightly better numbers than if he comes here and plays on your second line and ends up having to play with Dalibor Dvorsky next season.
And I will say, too, like with Barbashev, look at how the guy plays and where he scores goals from. This isn't a guy that scores off of the rush with his shot. This is a guy that goes to the front of the net. And what's the biggest thing that this team struggles from? Going to the front of the net. I think personality for individuals and if they put up numbers, those are the most important criteria. And to me, the two biggest mistakes, three, I guess, if you really want to look at it, that the Blues have made over their time was walking away from Barbashev. And I was making the push to not trade Barbashev at the time, choosing Letty over David Perron. And to me, not keeping Pat Maroon around, because I think those guys are who you want around your younger players. And just because, it'll irk me if I don't mention it, to the point of they didn't have the cap space or they couldn't have made it work, they could have made it work. You paid Kevin Hayes $3.5 million the next season, and you paid Kasperi Kapanen $3.2 million the next season. You could have made it work. You chose to get the younger player in return, which you chose wrong. I would choose for a guy like Ivan Barbashev, I would choose the profile of how the player plays and the personality and the identity over the return. Whereas with Vladimir Tarasenko, I was fine with getting a first-round pick. O'Reilly, I'm fine with getting the first-round pick because it's probably what's best for you.
I think it was twofold. One, they didn't at the time know that Torrey Krug wasn't going to play again after 2023. That impacted the cap sheet over the last couple of years, and I think that was part of it. It wasn't just a one-year decision. It was a over the next 5, which is probably what Barbie was looking for at the time. Can we afford this?
Yeah.
Can we make this work with he and all of these other guys that we want to pay?
And it was a flat cap.
Yeah, I would say in a time when you didn't know when the cap would go up. You knew it was going to go up. You weren't sure when.
And what they ended up learning a year later, and if they had this information at the time, maybe their decision then would have been different, is, hey, Torrey Krug's got termites in his ankles, and it's not going to work out for him here. He's never going to play another game of hockey again in his NHL career, and that $6.5 million is actually opened up on your books. You don't have to worry about that any longer. Well, at the time, they thought they were going to have to worry about that. Yeah. So I think that might have played into their decision as well. And they chose wrong. They chose Buchnevich over Barbie. Yeah. And they got it wrong very clearly. Right now, you'd rather have Ivan Barbashev straight up, and he's cheaper, younger, and doesn't have as much term on his deal.
And he's a UFA when he's 32, and you could walk away and be like, that was fun. Now it's not going to sustain any longer.
Questions and answers coming up next. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and get them in right now on the Air Comfort Service text line. From the 314, guys, I know the default answer to this question is, well, the team will tell us the answer, but if the Cardinals continue their slow decline to the trade deadline, will Chaim Bloom be a buyer, seller, or just stay the course?
Well, the team will tell us at that time.
If they continue on a slow decline to the trade deadline, they're selling.
Yeah.
If they're not within a game of a playoff spot, I think they're selling.
I think the team has to do something to force their hand into staying or buying.
Yeah. The standings don't really tell it as much as how the team's performing.
Well, both. I think the standings are definitely indicative on this, but I think the team's belief going into this season is we're selling. They would have to change the course of that with their performance. They would have to then show, hey, we are a step ahead or 3 steps ahead of what you expected for us to change how we view it. I don't think if they continue in a slow decline, they're buying or standing pat. They will sell in that scenario, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree, because they will have, in theory, 2 really good pieces to move on from, which is Jojo Romero, who would be one of the best left-handed relievers, if not the best left-handed reliever on the market, and Dustin May, who would be a third or fourth best starting pitcher on the market that teams would be definitely after. So, yeah, they're not playing well come deadline and they're out of the playoff picture. They're not going to be buying. They're going to be selling.
From Well Endowed, who from the Blues, either current roster or in their future system, has the best chance to be our next Barbie? Is it Carbonneau?
I could see Carbonneau, offensive upside, a physical player. I forget who made the comp, but Alex Tuck was a comp that they made Justin Carbonneau, and I love that comp now that they've said it. I think Carbonneau, and if Neighbors can get the right center and have the right offense with him, I think he could be it too. It's just a matter of you got to get the guy that can put pucks on net for him. So I like the Carbonneau one, and I like the Neighbors one.
So those would be the 2 for me, because my first thought was Neighbors till they said Carbonneau, and then Carbonneau did come to mind. So I think those are probably your only 2 outs for that role on this team.
From the 636, earlier on TMA, they discussed the band Limp Bizkit. Can T-Bone name any song by the band?
Oh,
no.
Man.
I've heard the name, but I don't know that I can name a Limp Bizkit song.
Really?
Do you know who the lead singer is?
No.
You don't know what his name is?
Is it Moon?
No.
Moon's in a band.
Yeah, he's in a band. That doesn't mean he's in Limp Bizkit.
Felt like a good guess.
You can't just name a band and assume he's a part of it.
There's
Why
a
not?
documentary about him.
Moon or Limp Bizkit?
Limp Bizkit.
No, I don't know anything about Limp Bizkit. I do love biscuits and gravy, though.
Oh, my God.
So good.
Let me see. Break Stuff is always a good one. My Way.
That's what the documentary is about.
My Way is a good one. And then the best one, in my opinion, is Rollin', because the wrestling fan of me. That was Undertaker's theme song when he was.
You know that song?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is probably one of those where I've probably heard at least like 3 or 4 of their
think so.
songs. I just couldn't name it right now.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. From the 314, do the Cardinals have any trade pieces of value? Riley and JoJo aren't elite bullpen arms at this point. JoJo's quietly been really good lately.
JoJo's been very good.
And Riley's have a bad outing, but if he gets himself right, I still think people would desire that because of the control.
If Stanek continues to pitch well, Stanek will become a weapon that teams will want because he's got strikeout stuff.
Wow.
Well, no.
He's a weapon.
I don't think teams value
You're right. The Cardinals would
fire
he's
extinguisher.
untradeable.
Noot would be valuable. JoJo will be valuable. If they want to sell O'Brien, he could be valuable. Soriano could have serious value at the deadline if they decide to go that direction
I
as
don't
well.
know if it's value, but I think teams would look at Gorman and be like, we could fix that.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to get any value for him.
Probably not, but I think team would say, we give a lottery pick for him, or lottery ticket for him, because some team would say, we can fix that.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 636. T-Bone's really hard to handle sometimes.
What?
I told him, BK, when you were out, Eric, or as we like to call him now, E-Money, because he self-designated his own nickname.
I can't help that you guys don't make modern-day references.
Eric knows all of our
generation.
stuff.
From the 618, the funny thing about T-Bone guessing if Moon was in Limp Bizkit is that Moon was listening to Limp Bizkit during the trivia game this morning.
Oh, was he?
That's amazing.
I just love how T-Bone just assumes if you're in a band, you're a part of that band.
Well, the way you asked the question and were looking at me, I was like, it must be someone in the building. And the only person I could think of was Moon.
From the 314, BK, are you wearing your Bobby Witt Jr. shirt today. No, I'm wearing my Tarps Off movement shirt.
I thought that was a tarp soft
The official
shirt.
Stephen F. Austin shirt. I figured I'd support the boys.
I love the line at the bottom. Screw it, I'll do it. How many times in my life have I said that?
So yeah, I'm supporting the Stephen F. Austin guys. I know there were a lot of people that tried to get rich off of this movement. I wanted to support the guys that actually started it. So
That boy.
bought a t-shirt from him. All right, 314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line. In about 15 minutes, we'll dive into NFL quick hitters. But next, one of the players that might have some value at the trade deadline is Dustin May. Is he pitching his way into the Cardinals' plans beyond this season, though? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. So Dustin May was once again great last night. That guy's been great for a little while now, though. He has really turned it around after the first couple of starts in a Cardinals uniform. And Alex, you now look at what he's done in his last 10 starts. He's gone basically 6 innings per start, has a 3.2 ERA, and in those 60 innings has 53 strikeouts and 16 walks. He's been awesome. If you look at the last 3 starts, this is where things have really changed for him. Now, the strikeout rate is unbelievable. 25 strikeouts in his last 18 innings over the last 3 starts. He does have a 4 ERA. I don't think that's indicative of just how good he has been in these starts. Like yesterday, it was just bad batted ball luck. There was not a whole lot that could have been done there. He pitched well, gave up a few earned runs, but I thought he had a really good game yesterday. Like, was a really good starter for the Cardinals. And so now you look up, and again, for the last 10 starts, he's pitching to a 3.2 ERA. You'll sign up for that every day of the week out of Dustin May or really any starter that's in the middle of your rotation. I remember coming into the season, and 2 places where BK was right. I said it's not crazy to believe this team could win 80 to 85 games. I was laughed at for that. Part 2, I wondered, is there a scenario where Dustin May could play his way into your future more than just being a 1-year stopgap? Because he's 28 years old. This isn't a guy that's coming in like Lance Lynn or Kyle Gibson or Miles Michaelis, who, by the way, allowed back-to-back home runs last night to open up a game for the Nationals. Glad we don't have to watch that anymore.
That was fun while it lasted, though, wasn't it?
This is a guy that could legitimately have another 5+ years of quality performances for some team. And now you look up, and I think we might be ready to have that conversation. Is he pitching his way into the Cardinals' plans beyond just the 2026 season for you, Alex?
For me, no. And I don't think I'll ever get to the point where I'm ready to have that conversation. I think I'm sturdy on the fact that I'm trading that piece. I just think he's going to be a valuable commodity come trade deadline time. He's going to be a realistic acquisition for a lot of teams compared to like a Tarek Skubal, who is not going to be realistic for a lot of teams. And I think if I'm the Cardinals, I'm still in asset accumulation mode. And this, to me, is more of a confidence builder for my organization, to where I look at it and say, hey, if I can recognize the right piece and find a guy that wants to pitch for the Cardinals, I can fix him. And that's what you did with Dustin May. Now, some of this is just health related, but still, you got a guy who I don't think anybody thought he could get back on track, looking like a really good pitcher. So to me, I think he's going to be a commodity at the deadline. And I'm not sure that unless the Cardinals are securely holding down a playoff spot, I think I'm moving Dustin May, because I believe that could get you a decent return at the deadline. And if I'm the Cardinals, I'm still in trying to bulk up my pipeline and get as much in return as possible.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm ready to commit long-term to him just yet. I also don't know if he's going to really carry enough value at the deadline to be moved. And the reason I say that is we all agree Merrill Kelly's a pretty good starter in this room, right? Merrill Kelly got traded for like nothing at the deadline. He was the best starter on the market. May's going to be arguably potentially the 4th best starter on the market. If Skubal becomes available, Robbie Ray becomes available, that's the top 2 that will be on the market. Maybe he slots into that 3rd spot. I feel like there was somebody else I said in the office earlier that I can't remember. But if he's the 3rd best starter on the market, I don't know how much. Oh, Freddie Peralta will be on the market too, potentially. I don't know if there's going to be a ton of value there to where I would say, okay, is it better for us to keep him? We'll pick up the mutual option, and then if he declines his part of the mutual option, then we'll just put the QO on him, and we can get a first-round pick for him if he doesn't accept it. If he does, we're going year to year with him, which is what I would probably prefer, because I don't want to commit to him long-term until I can see he can stay healthy for back-to-back seasons. He can stay healthy back-to-back seasons if you pick up this mutual option or he signs the QO and pitches like this again. Okay, now I'm really ready to have the conversation about him playing into the long-term plans. But right now, I'm kind of on the fence. I'm 50-50. I just know I wouldn't go long-term contract with him yet.
I think they can QO him after the season if my understanding is correct. I think both sides could decline the mutual option, and then you're able to qualifying offer him. I'm not exactly sure how that works, but I think that's the case. And if we operate under that assumption, that would mean you could potentially either recoup a draft pick for him next year, or you could keep him next year for a $20 million-ish salary. If you're Dustin May, do you want to go into the offseason in a scenario where you could have a lockout looming, not knowing where your next home's going to be, and have to do like a on-the-fly signing prior to spring training next year, not knowing where exactly that's going to be, when that's going to come your way? I think there's a decent chance that Dustin May would sign that qualifying offer with the St. Louis Cardinals heading into the offseason. And in that scenario, you've got a guy on a 1-year deal worth $20-ish million locked up, ready to go for 2027. I don't know about you guys. I don't feel great about their depth that's prepared for 2027. I feel decent about their depth that's going to be there eventually. But for next year, early in the season, I'd be more than happy to have Dustin May back with this rotation if he continues to pitch the way that he has. Now, if he sucks the rest of the way, this is a different conversation, but you don't have to make this decision right now. You can make it when we get to November. And that's when you're ultimately going to be on the clock if you're the Cardinals. But I think the odds of you getting something more for Dustin May at the deadline than you would get if he declines the qualifying offer are pretty low. I think that draft pick would be more valuable, most likely, than the prospects that you're going to be able to get. And I just think the value of having him in your rotation next year locked in, ready to go, if he accepts the qualifying offer, is also probably more valuable than the prospects that you're going to be able to get for him. Because then again, you'll be able to flip him next year if he's good at the trade deadline and you decide to go that route with it. So I'm open to this. Would you sign a 5-year deal with him? Well, no, but you don't have to. That's not the scenario that's being presented here. You could sign a 1-year deal, buy yourself a little bit more time. You basically get 2 years and $35 million for Dustin May, giving you quality production in the middle of your rotation. Pretty damn good deal if you told me on day one that they signed him that that's what they'd be ultimately signing up for.
And if you want to create a spot, like Derek told us yesterday, right, that they're high on Dobbins as a guy that could be in this rotation. If you decide, you know what, it wasn't worth it from the prospect capital, if he decides to pick up the QO rather than allowing us to get potentially the first-round pick if he signs somewhere else, you've got other candidates you can trade out of the rotation as well, right? Palante's going to get a little bit more expensive now that he's in the arbitration process. I'm not saying you're getting anything of significant for him, but if you want to clear up a spot, you can make a move inside this rotation as well, right? You could then maybe even argue maybe we put Leahy back into the bullpen. So it's not like he actually blocks somebody in the rotation if you decide to keep him around. You can kind of manipulate and move things around to where you can free up a spot for whether it be Dobbins or Motts, if Matthews figures it out, if Fitz is someone that they want to clear a spot for. He doesn't create a log jam like we have seen in the past where they can run into these issues where you start to have these conversations with veteran arms.
And just look back at some of the deals that the Cardinals have made for starters at the deadline in recent years. Specifically, you look at that sell-off where they end up trading Jack Flaherty to the Orioles, and in return they get Cesar Prieto, Drew Rom, and Zach Showalter. We just saw Cesar Prieto. He could be DFA'd at any moment. Drew Rom is already gone. Zach Showalter has been granted his release from the minor leagues. You basically got nothing for Jack Flaherty.
That's an older regime, though. Like, you got Chaim Bloom now, who might be able to identify better talent. So, like, to me, and I understand what you guys are saying.
But that's not abnormal. What they got is about as good as you can do at a trade deadline. Yeah. And they got Thomas Sajaci and TK Roby for Jordan Montgomery, who was considered to be one of the prized pitchers available at that year's deadline. And what they get for him? Well, they got a guy that we're not even sure is going to contribute to your major league roster, and a pitcher who is constantly hurt, and that was the only reason why he was available at the time.
Yeah.
So now I'm supposed to believe that you're going to get more than that for a guy like Dustin May, who has shown you, I don't know, at that point, 4 months of quality pitching in the last 4 years?
And again, to that point,
I think it's unlikely.
Monty was arguably one of the best starters on the market that year. I can think of 3 already that I would rather trade for if I'm an outside team than for Dustin May. And that's not a shot at May, but like...
Yeah, but some of those are just a pipe dream. Like, a lot of teams don't have a shot at getting Tarek Skubal.
Maybe not, but I bet teams have a shot to get Freddie Peralta or Robbie Ray.
Sure.
Like,
I don't know if Robbie Ray's for sure better than him.
And then it just comes down to how they're performing up to the deadline. Dustin May be performing better than all of those guys at the deadline.
I do think we should also take into consideration the Royals are probably going to be selling at this year's deadline. They've got a lot of pitching to offer.
Yeah, Waka, Lugo, those two have been very good, right?
Yeah, that's another team to keep in mind, and those are pitchers that everybody could afford.
All I'm saying is I'm not quick to say, nope, not happening. He's a part of my future. I'm still going to investigate the market and see if I can get a return that I deem, if I'm Chaim Bloom and staff, a good return that gives us a piece that helps us in the future. Because I think, and I understand what you're saying, but I trust the system now that looks at pitchers and say, yeah, we could figure something out with this. And if there's value that you can get in return, if I'm the Cardinals, I'd take it.
I do too. I trust them. I would also say they value Dustin May. They showed you with their actions and with their money, their investment and their time, they value Dustin May. And then if you're able to get him to where he is right now, and man, the picture that I watched last night, that looks like a legit middle of the rotation starter for a good team, not just for a rebuilding Cardinals team. That guy can pitch in the playoffs, what I watched last night. And he can be good once you get there. If they're able to get him there, that doesn't mean that I just have to search for the next guy. That might mean Well, then they figured it out. And he's 28 years old, and you can just continue to keep him around for the coming years. Like, I don't always need to cycle through this the way that the Tampa Bay Rays do.
They're good at it, though.
They're very good at it, no doubt, but you don't have to do that. Eventually, you can just stop the music. You don't have to do the game of musical chairs. You can just pull a chair out. You can say, well, I've got one of these. I'm ready to go.
You don't have to do it, but if I'm in my first year of a rebuild and I want to get more assets, I think I take advantage of that at the time.
But all of those assets that you're getting are maybes. This is closer to a sure thing. And I've got a lot of maybes in my system already, and I'm about to add probably a lot more via this year's draft where they've got, 5 picks in the top 75 or something like that? Yeah. I would bet you the majority of that is going to be pitching. I could also get a return for JoJo Romero, Riley O'Brien, George Soriano, Lars Nootbaar. Like, there's other ways that I can get a return at the trade deadline via that pitching that you're talking about. I don't have to do that for Dustin May. I've already got a pitcher that is stable that I can put into my rotation for right now and for the next year or maybe even beyond. I'm open to that as well, but I know you guys aren't ready to go there. I'm good with that. Like, if you just want to play this year by year, I'm fine with that that decision. Right now, if I was in Chaim Bloom's shoes, my current plan, kind of like what we were talking about with the deadline, the plan is to sell, and then they can change that depending on how they play. My current plan with Dustin May would be, my hope is that we can qualifying offer him at the end of the season. And then we'll see what comes from that. Either I get a draft pick compensation for him or he's pitching in my rotation in 2027. But either way, I feel like that's a pretty good out for the investment that they made in this particular asset. Coming up next, time for some NFL quick hitters here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's time for some NFL quick hitters here on 101 ESPN. We'll get to Chris Kerber here in about 10 minutes. T-Bone, the more I see stuff, the more I think that your guy Aaron Donald's coming back.
Agreed, but T-Bone thinks he's old and washed up.
He keeps posting all of these pictures or videos. Now, I don't know if this is thirst trapping or if it's real, but he keeps posting this stuff to social media basically saying, I'm ready. And then he texted a bunch of NFL reporters and also Pat McAfee yesterday saying, really considering it because I want to play with Myles Garrett.
And then he had his wife do the polar opposite of what he did to try and make you wonder. His wife posted, y'all are hilarious or something like that.
It was that, y'all are hilarious.
Yeah. So this is how you do, though. This is how you play the game, right? You make them think one thing, the other doesn't happen. My prediction is he comes back in the playoffs.
I think if he signs, I think he signs in like October.
I don't think he's coming back.
Plays himself into game shape.
He doesn't need game shape. He trains with knives, man.
The guy's unbelievable.
Yeah. I can't wait for him to come back. I'm actually rooting for it now to prove T-Bone wrong that he's in shape and will still be one of the best defenders on the field.
If he could still play at the level that he was at when he retired, it'd be awesome. I mean, I don't know how you would stop.
He's not going to be that.
Not that level, but he can play.
Because, like, if he can get up to that, if he can be close to that level, I mean, you're talking about an unstoppable pass rush. Because their defensive tackles already, Fisk, and I can't remember the other guy's name.
Isn't it? Not Young.
Yeah, he's on the edge.
Yeah.
We're like 5th and 12th in pass rush rating last season. So if you
Cody Turner, is that it?
Yeah, Turner, thank you. If you have those two coming up the middle who are already top 15 in terms of like pass rush success with Garrett coming on one edge and then Donald coming off the other, if not working his way in the middle as well, I don't know how you're going to be able to pass the football against that team. Like, you're just not going to be able to have your quarterback drop back. They're going to be in his lap the moment he takes that snap.
Freaking Rams, man.
I love
That's
it.
unbelievable.
I say it all. I've officially confirmed that they are the Vegas Golden Knights of the NFL.
Oh, yeah.
They don't care about picks. They just want the best players available.
But only in years in which the Super Bowl is in LA. That is one thing that I've kind of...
This is like when the Winter Classic always seemed to go back to Chicago. I'm like, can't we find other places for the Super Bowl to play?
Oh, I'm not so much saying that. Like, the Rams are going all in a year where the Super Bowl is in L.A., just as they did last time around when the Super Bowl was in L.A. They want to play in that Super Bowl when it's in their home stadium. Kroenke apparently values that. Whether there is actual value in that or not, I don't know. But he seems to think so, and I find that to be kind of interesting. I would think it doesn't matter where the game is played. You would value getting to the Super Bowl and winning it, but whatever.
As a Rams fan, I've never said Kroenke's smart, but what I find interesting about it, too, is just how well it worked out with their timeline, because they did go through a reset there. They kept the band together, I think, for a year after winning that first Super Bowl, and we're like, whoa, we cannot continue to do this. They did a quick little reset, and now they're right back to it. I think they would have still done these moves if the Super Bowl was in, like, New Orleans, for example.
I don't know.
I think they would have gone all in because I think they've been building towards this. They know they've got a limited window with Matthew Stafford.
All right, the NFL FPI rankings are out. The Football Power Index by Seth Walden over on ESPN.com.
Most wanted list in the offseason.
They have your Rams at number 1 on this list, T-Bone.
Yeah, makes sense.
And it's by a wide margin. The gap between the Rams and number 2 on this list, which is the Buffalo Bills, is the same as the gap between the Bills at number 2 and the Chiefs at number 9. It is also worth noting that the Chiefs are at number 9 on this list.
Well, it makes
behind
sense.
the Bills, the Ravens, and the Chargers in the AFC. So they are, according to this, the 4th best roster in the AFC. Do you guys agree with that?
Yeah, I think so on paper. As much as I think Patrick Mahomes is the difference maker and makes it better than all of those teams, your tight end is old. Your wide receiver
in jail.
is in jail working on his knee.
By the way, I saw today he's been granted permission to get rehab on his knee while in jail. So shout out to the Chiefs. Playing the game, baby. Good
They
work.
always find a way to do this. And the defense just isn't the same as what it's been in the past. So, yeah, I can see them being this low. Now, I wouldn't bet against them once the season begins and they get healthier. But, yeah, I mean, it's not like I'm going to act that they're the best team because they've got Patrick Mahomes.
I agree.
Yeah, I think this is probably about right because, I love what they did by bringing in Kenneth Walker, help the run game out. But we saw Mahomes can only do so much with this wide receiver core, and they've kind of kept it together. We'll see how Rice's rehab goes now that he can leave jail for it.
No, can't leave.
No, he can't leave. They're coming to him.
Yeah, even better.
You don't get recess.
Oh, sorry, I didn't know.
You get out of jail for this.
I don't know.
You just get the rehab you need.
Just shackle him up and they take him out there. Why not?
That's yard time. That's yard time.
Is this Con Air?
Yeah.
And he's just flying to Kansas City for his rehab and then going back?
T-Bone, what you're thinking of is yard time. He'll play hoops for a couple of little bit. Get to the
I don't think
knee
that's
out.
in the rehab process, but
T-Bone doesn't know how jail works. Turns out.
He's in Dallas jail, so he's just going to the Cowboys rehab facility and going
The
back.
chief sent the private jet. He just gets shackled to the back of it.
Anyways, as I
Serving
was
time
saying,
at the Star.
as
Put him
I
up at
was
the
saying,
Marriott in the president's room.
I love the addition of the running back room with Walker. That's going to help the offense, but I don't know you're going to see a significant step forward. And then to your point on the defense, they lost two of their best corners in the offseason, right? Like, they trade away McDuffie, and the other one signs with the Rams as well. So we'll see what the secondary looks like. It's a huge question mark.
And did they fix their offensive line?
The offensive line's fine.
Okay.
it's
Because their quarterback had to do a lot of moving around last
was
year
hurt.
at the end.
The offensive line was hurt.
Yeah.
Their left tackle got hurt. Their right tackle got hurt. Like, when that happens, any offensive line's going to be in shambles. But, yeah, their offensive line, I think, is going to be A-OK. But 9th overall, I think, is fine for where this roster is at. Now, Patrick Mahomes, if he's healthy and good again, like, he can bring you up to number 1 or 2 on this list just by virtue of the fact that you've got one of the best players in the world at that position.
Here's a question for you, because the Rams obviously made that move and moved them up. If the Ravens pulled off successfully that Max Crosby deal, where would they be at for you?
About there.
Where they're at right
I'm
now?
not as all in on this Ravens roster as everybody else seems to be.
It's kind of where I'm at as well, especially
Got real questions about that.
You don't have the wide receivers that the Rams do. Like, yes, the Rams got Myles freaking Garrett, but they also have Puka if, he's there all season.
Also, it's an open-ended question as to how good they're going to be coached this year.
Yeah.
I mean, John Harbaugh leaving is not an insignificant thing. I think he's a really good coach. I don't know what it's going to look like this year. It may be better. The alternative is not always worse, but it could be. So I have no idea what that's going to look like.
And how much longer can Derrick Henry keep doing this, right?
Fair question.
And last year he had fumbling problems and didn't have
their
that great
O-line
year.
was abysmal last year.
Like, I'm with you guys. I don't know. I think they're probably in the right ranking here, like being the second best team potentially on paper. I have serious questions about them, too. I could see where they end up underperforming and missing expectations.
Yeah, for me, I think it would be reasonable to have them lower. I would prefer to have the Chargers roster than the Ravens roster.
I agree with that. I don't trust Herbert, but I also don't trust Lamar, and I think the Chargers defense is better.
Yeah. I would have
And
the
the better
Ravens
coach.
closer to the Chiefs, and I would have the Chargers right now as the second best roster in the AFC. I don't know if they'll be able to take advantage because, man, we've seen it. They get to the playoffs and they screw it up somehow.
They always get hurt.
That too. Yeah, but their roster overall, like
chokes.
on paper, they're wildly talented, and they've got a really good head coach. And now they brought in a play caller and Mike McDaniel that I think is a really good play caller, too. And he's going to get the most out of that running game. So you combine that with Justin Herbert in the passing game that they have, pretty good defense. They're very, very interesting
I
to me.
forgot you love Mike McDaniel.
My Packers at number 6 on this list,
Yeah,
that's
a
way
joke.
too high.
That's a joke.
I agree with that one.
As
hell
the
is he?
resident Packers honk, that's too high.
Yeah, your defense is good. That's all you got going for
Where
you.
would you drop them down to? Because I kind of like the Cowboys better than I like them.
Yeah, I think middle of the pack. Like, if you told me who's going to be better next year, the Packers or the Bears, I think the Bears.
Bears.
If you told me who's going to be better next year, Packers or the Vikings, I think I'd probably take the Vikings. Packers or the Jaguars, I'd take the Jaguars. So I think they belong more in the Bucks, Colts, Commanders range, where they've got them in the 18, 19, 20-ish.
Yeah.
I think that's about where the Packers should be.
I agree with that.
I also think they're really well coached, so maybe that boosts them up a little bit higher.
It doesn't.
I
They have a
think-
great coach, and
I
they
think
don't know who to give the ball to.
I think it boosts them up a little bit higher, not high, like 6 high. Like I think
that's
like
crazy.
Maybe 16.
It's going to be a really fun year in the NFL. If you set aside the Rams, who are, clearly ahead of everybody in the pack, there are so many questions about all of these second-tier NFL teams, but I also think there are a ton of teams that could break through and get to, like, just behind the Rams. It's as open as it's been, especially in the AFC, in a really long time.
Yeah.
So I think there's a chance that last year was the start of something new where you do have a lot of teams that could be in contention for the Super Bowl. And typically for, the last 20 years, it's been Brady, Manning, Mahomes. and occasionally Ben Roethlisberger. Like, those are the quarterbacks that get out of the AFC, and then the NFC is the rotating cast of characters. I think the AFC has become that, what the NFC once was. Coming up next, Chris Kerber, voice of the Blues here on 101 ESPN.
Hey, listen, we are pointed closer to the sun. That's exactly what happens in the summertime. You can't avoid the summer heat in St. Louis. You know what you can't avoid? You can't avoid your air conditioner going kaput on you at the wrong time. How do you do that? You get online at classicaircare.com. If you're like me and you like to talk to live people, pick up the phone and call the numbers on the website as well. Have them come out to the house, do a maintenance check for you. Make sure that air conditioner is ready to go for the summer. It's less than $100 to get that done. Now, here's the other thing. Machines break down. At some point in time, you may need a bigger repair to that air conditioner. Right now, mine's making a sound that I don't like. I'm going to have them come out to the house, and I'll keep you updated on how that goes. But the reality of it is they are here to help you take the stress away. They've got over 100 vans on the road. They can get to you typically within 24 hours, and they are there to make your life more comfortable and easier. That's Classic Air Care. They've got a 4.8 Google rating for a reason. They're that good, and customer service is their number one priority. So do what I do. Get online, classicaircare.com. Get them out to the house. They've been making people comfortable since 1926.
Tanner Henderickson here. The Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Cardinals fell to the Rangers yesterday 7-4. They'll try and salvage Game 3 tonight. 6:45 will be first pitch. Mackenzie Gore will be on the mound for Texas. Andre Palante will be on the hill for St. Louis. And tonight here on 101 ESPN, we've got Game 1 of the NBA Finals for you. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 6:30 with tip-off at 7:30. The Sports Center update was brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Happy to go out to the Kiley and Thompson hotline to be joined by the voice of the Blues, Chris Kerber, who joins us each and every Wednesday here on the show. Kerbs, what's good, man? How you doing?
BK, doing great today. How are you?
Doing very well. So we got to see an interesting game last night. Vegas Golden Knights ultimately win it 5-4 against the Carolina Hurricanes. Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final. Curbs, we were talking about this earlier today. We brought up Ivan Barbashev because he scored a goal last night. He's been great so far in the postseason. When you look back on the end of his tenure here in St. Louis, did you think this was going to be the player that he would become in Vegas?
Yes. We talked about him a lot. Like there's always here in St. Louis, there wasn't an opportunity at the time with where the team was for him to move up the lineup, but he constantly showed he had that ability. He played a hard-nosed, nonstop style of winning hockey that every single team wants. And so, of all the moves that was made, in that transition period, that's the one that, might just kind of gnaw at you the most when you consider that in the end, and, the chapter's yet to be finished when it comes to Zach Dean, but in the end, the one player that's probably had more of an impact than any of the ones you traded on the teams he's been at has been Barbashev, and he's the one you probably got the least return for. And, that's sometimes the way it goes. Hindsight's 20/20 on this one, because you figure, okay, you trade for a player that was picked, you sped up the development, you like every bit of the reasoning on there. It just didn't quite pan out that way. But yeah, he's just a heck of a player. And to watch him score again, he's on the ice when for a couple of the goals last night. To have that player at just $5 million a season really is something.
BK kind of asked the question when we went into the commercial break after we talked about that segment, Curbs, and like you said, hindsight is 20/20, and the Blues are headed in a different direction. But do you sit back and kind of wonder what the team would have looked like if decisions went different directions? Of maybe Barbashev was still here, Alex Pietrangelo, or David Perron were still a part of the Blues?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think everybody does. As a fan, sure, you would do that. Look, there was, if we go back, let's do a little revisionist history, if we will, for a second here, right? You end up in this situation where you're still in a flat cap era, right? You've got all these guys that are unrestricted free agents. You're looking at teams like San Jose, the Buffalo Sabres, what the Edmonton Oilers had done, what Toronto had done, where you were looking at teams that missed the playoffs 8, 9, case of Buffalo, a decade plus years, right? You go, and scenarios were presented, and organizationally they decided we're going to go this route and get some assets while the cupboard isn't bare, and while we do go through a little bit of downturn, we think that it'll be a shorter term pain, and I think the Blues are playing that out as their plan showed them. I mean, they had good success. They made the playoffs the 1 year, right? But, you just have finished 3 years of that plan, and you still made the playoffs in one of those 3 years. So when I say this, I don't think you look back at it questioning the decision. Now, the flip side is do you take a much more aggressive, little bit of the future be damned approach? When you made the trade for the Ryan O'Reilly trade, it wasn't just a first-round pick, that brought you Theo Lindstein. It wound up being, a pick that also has Pekarczyk, and Fisher in your lineup, right? Or in your prospect organization. The Tarasenko deal, you get the other one. I think you finish that year anyway, you end up with a top 10 pick. You still have Dvorsky. Maybe you only have one of those guys. So, yeah, there's a lot to it, fellas. But do I think you're still a totally different competitive team if your centermen are still Robert Thomas and Ryan O'Reilly? And, maybe David Perron is one of those. The whole thing really started to snowball with the moves that you made because you weren't able to keep Alex Pietrangelo in free agency. And sometimes that's sports. Look, to this day, I don't think either side has really talked about really what those negotiations were like publicly, but in the end, it was Alex's choice to leave. He valued what Vegas had a little bit more, and look, it won him another cup. So that just shows, and guys, I'll relate it to you. Simple topic. Let's face it, one of the biggest challenges the Cardinals had and franchise changing was the death of Oscar Taveras, right? And how many decisions snowballed after that or off of that? Same thing happens when somebody leaves via free agency.
Yeah, and he was the guy that ultimately changed everything because you make the trade or you make the signing of Torrey Krug. We know that did not go as expected, and a lot of that was injury related, which we now know. But the defensive conversation in general, you just had to piece together what Alex Pietrangelo was giving you. So you go out and you make the Marco Scandella move, Nick Leddy move. You sign those contracts for those guys, neither of which worked out all that well after the signings. That's tying up a lot
And
money.
then COVID happens and you get the flat cap.
Yep. All of that happening simultaneously.
There's a ton of I don't think we can underestimate the COVID scenario here because if the Blues were first in the West, when COVID paused the season and then everything looked different after that. That said, the Marco Scandella thing, that was more of the reaction to Jay Bouwmeester going down, if you remember that scenario, that acquisition. But then you re-signed him. It's the Torrey Krug one, and then it's the decision of okay, now in that process, we have $4 million in cap space. Do we re-sign David Perron or do we re-sign Nick Leddy? And then so you make that defensive decision there, and stuff. So it's things like that snowball, guys, and I do wonder just for the sake of discussion, look, none of the guys that left. And take Tarasenko out because he had requested a trade. None of the guys signed free agent contracts that were overvalued or that have been bad contracts for their teams. Ryan O'Reilly had 70 points last season, right, making $4.5 million. So I look at they were all friendlies. So what do you learn from it? I think, and to me, guys, again, this is just my philosophy on this. Vegas is just showing how you stay competitive in a different level. And frankly, even Carolina for that matter. When you're talking about having only maybe between two teams, 6 total draft picks of their own combined between these two teams in the Stanley Cup final, it shows you there's another way of how you compete and how you make it. But that leads me back to the Blues going, not all of these prospects are going to be here when this team is knocking on that competitive window. How do they use them? How do they move them? And when do they move them? That really becomes the key.
Interesting thing, though, Curbs, I don't know if Blues fans would want the team to operate the way that Carolina has, and I don't think the Blues can operate the way that Vegas does because of the local taxes, just the market that exists within Vegas as well. I think there's a pull to that stars want to go play there, and I don't know that same pull exists here in St. Louis. That's not me talking down to the city. I love it, but, it's not Vegas. I think we can all acknowledge as much because of the weather, because of what exists on the Strip, all of that different stuff. So I do wonder if there are some key differences between the way that those teams operate as well.
Well, there are. But let's make one thing very clear. One, when you say operate like Carolina, I think the Blues, I think Carolina kind of built this team and operated a lot like the Blues did. They've got a team that in some ways is quite similar to the St. Louis Blues without that true superstar, right? But this is where I'm going with this. To me, what's fascinating about Vegas is how you do change the narrative, how you look at it. Yes, and then until Governor Keogh gets the tax thing through, you're going to have that issue.
We're going to have a conversation about that another day.
Yeah, but the reality of it is there's still only several teams that have that. Florida's had no taxes forever, and people weren't clamoring to go down and play in Florida until they started.
But it's not just the taxes, Curbs. It's also the market. Like, people want to play in Miami. People want to play in Vegas. People want to play in New York. People want to play in Toronto.
My point is, BK, is they didn't want to. My point is, Vegas is a different scenario because Vegas came in, and this is what makes them such a great study. The way they competed, the team they put together, and how they've managed to continue to just cutthroat, go after players. I mean, to have Hurdle and Eichel and Marner, right? Now, yeah, look, I'm not naive to say that the market and how they're doing and what it is about Vegas and all that stuff is part of it. I'm saying, though, that teams do want to go to winning teams, right? And when I look at the St. Louis Blues, for example, I look at this franchise. I look at the number of alumni that continue to stay here and play here. When I look at the fact that you could have anywhere from Brett Hull, Chris Pronger, Al McInnes, Alex Steen, and so many others, David Backus, and whatever, that have, played here that will talk about this market. The way Ivan Barbashev still talks about how much he loved playing here. Ryan O'Reilly, the same thing, guys. I think that the Blues can change that narrative rather than publicly saying free agents don't want to come here. I think you got to find a way that they will, because once they're here, Torrey Krug being another one, absolutely loved it when he's here. So you do have those challenges, BK. I'm not saying that those challenges don't exist. What I am saying is, like, the part about Vegas to me that is most fascinating is that they're showing that you don't necessarily have to compete by constantly developing your own draft picks. Like, there's another way to stay in that window. And sure, maybe eventually it's going to bite them in a cap crunch. But man, when the commissioner comes out yesterday and says revenues are $7.5 to $8 billion right now, and they continue to find new revenue streams, right now there doesn't seem to be a cap issue with most teams. So I just think you got to. It's more of a philosophical thing on how you approach some of this stuff than anything else. And I think the older school way of just going, tearing it down, building up the draft picks, I'm not so sure that's the successful route anymore.
I agree. I just think it's different to do that in Vegas, LA, New York, Miami, Toronto than it is to do that in St. Louis or Winnipeg or Seattle, for example.
Except for the fact that they're not. Except for this, I agree with you, and I hear what you're saying about. I know what you're saying about the markets, right? Okay. But we don't see a lot of unrestricted free agents, clamoring to go to New York. And Marner was looking to get out of Toronto in the end. Like, it's fascinating. To me, it's the Nashvilles. It's other ones. Now, Carolina's Carolina. I don't think we can even put them in the market. No one's kind of clamoring to go there as per se, right?
But Army's talked about this, Curbs, where he says the Blues are not a tier 1 or 2 destination in free agency for players. He said he's acknowledged as much in his career.
And that's where I think, and very bluntly, I think that's where the narrative of this organization publicly needs to change. And yeah, look, I'm passionate about it because I'm from here, but I've worked with this team now since 2000, right? I look at the players that have played here. I look at what it's like when they come here. I look at how they respond when they're here. That's the story. Now, yes, are they seeking you out? Do we have the ocean? Do we have it? No. Do we have our problems? We sure do, right? But Ryan O'Reilly had no problem coming to St. Louis and then wanting to stay. He just didn't want to play in a lesser role. That's why that extension didn't happen. I think that you will have some that are going to pick markets for different reasons, but in the end, I think from top to bottom, even just that narrative that you referred to of things that Army, was talking about, not denying they exist. I just think you got to overcome them with a different approach, and I think we're going to see that with Alexander Steen.
It's going to be it's a really interesting perspective, Curbs, and I do find the entire conversation to be quite fascinating. Appreciate you hopping on with us today, man. Wish you nothing but the best. We've got the World Cup coming up very soon. I know that's going to be something we'll probably be discussing with you in the coming days and weeks. We'll talk with you again next week, Curbs.
Sounds good. We got Parkway West girls soccer in the state semifinals, guys, on Friday. So let's keep seeing it. Yeah, that'll be a good one. They got Corey Azu and that Maddie DiMaria. Should be a fun game for the girls to be in. So that's where the rooting interest changed to for the weekend, fellas.
Appreciate you, Curbs. Take it easy, man.
All right, guys. Good luck.
Thank you. That's Chris Kerber, voice of the Blues, joining us here on 101 ESPN. By the way, Lars Nootbaar hit a home run in his first at-bat today with AAA Memphis as he continues his rehab assignment. I believe this is expected to be... Does Memphis play tomorrow, T-Bone?
They do, but he can't play in it because his 20 days is up.
So I think today is his last game prior to his return with the St. Louis Cardinals. Alex, where do you stand on that? Do you think that the Blues are a legit destination for free agents? Because I think when players play here, I think the same thing is true for the Cardinals. When players experience what it's like to live and play in this city, they love it. Like, I don't think I've ever really heard anybody say anything otherwise. The athletes that play here or live here enjoy it. It's getting them to come here that I think is the harder sell sometimes because, like, listen, man, again, I love this city. I know that sometimes it sounds fake because I'm not from here, and so, like, I'm this outsider. I genuinely love this city. The food in this city is unbelievable. The places that you can go in this city are shockingly great. The people in this city are awesome. The beer in this city is amazing. Like, there's a lot of stuff here that's really, really great. If you're an outsider that has never spent an extended amount of time in St. Louis outside of just going to the arena, which is basically all that players do when they're in town in St. Louis, the belief is, well, they don't have an ocean, they don't have mountains, they don't have great weather. What exactly is the pull here?
They don't have a downtown.
There's not a great downtown, and there's no, like, tax-free piece to the pie. So why am I going there over Nashville or Vegas or New York or Miami? Like, the hockey situation has to be that much better than everywhere else to get their attention, or the money has to be that much greater, which is another equalizer in these conversations. But I think these other places just, you're below them on the pecking order.
Yeah, I fall into that camp as well. And I mean, I'm born and bred in St. Louis. So, like, this is my hometown and I'm passionate about it like Kerbs. But I also am aware that, like, when you think of where the NHL is at now, there's about, I'd say, 8 or 9 destinations that if I'm a young player, I look at and say, this is where I want to go. And that's where I think the line splits. Because I think if you talk to a unrestricted free agent who's 28 years old, who's been in the league for 6 years, who has 2 kids, and wants a little bit of a quieter lifestyle, that's where St. Louis. Paul Stastny, for example, was the top free agent. He was in St. Louis where the desired match. Because
also
he had ties to it,
this organization.
But he was also that guy that was kind of in that stage of his life.
No doubt.
To where I think when you're talking about the younger side of players, it's getting them here and letting them see what the city is. Like, I've been doing this for now 13 years, especially with the Blues, and have had multiple conversations with former players and current players. And typically when I talk to the former players and I ask the question, like, what did you know about St. Louis prior? They'd say nothing. It was a place that I got off the plane, I went to the hotel, I went to the game, and I left. It wasn't until I played for St. Louis that I said, oh, man, this place is incredible. And when I left, I only wanted to be back in St. Louis.
Absolutely.
So I think St. Louis is one of those places that when you're a free agent now, hockey is such a tight-knit community, those guys call other players. They call guys that played for the team. What about the city? What about the team? What about the coach? What about the GM? And the players are bluntly honest. So they have to be told, like, yeah, man, this is a great place that you're going to go. It's not the number one priority on a lot of guys' lists. And if you think of where guys are at free agency-wise now, man, a lot of them hit free agency by about the age of 25, 26. They want a big payday, and they want to be in a big market where they can flaunt their stuff.
And can we be honest? Guys aren't hitting free agency.
No.
They're forcing their way out a year or two prior to hitting free agency.
And they're going where they can.
Choosing their destinations. Because they, on their bridge deals or on the first deal that they sign, they get a no-trade clause, or they say, I'm not re-signing in any place other than where I want to go. And so the team is going to be able to get less in those trades unless the guy is willing to re-sign somewhere else. So then they choose their next destination prior to getting to the age of 28, 29, 30, when maybe they would be more likely, given the spot they're at in their life, to be interested in a place like St. Louis. None of this is to say that St. Louis is not a great destination or not a good place to live or a good place to play, any of the sort. It's a fantastic spot. You have to convince these players of that, and it's much easier. It's an easier sell to do that in Vegas or Miami or Los Angeles or New York.
Or you're winning. I think if you're winning, I think it's where it changes.
That's where I agree with Kerbs, because he's right. The Florida Panthers have always been a team that nobody wants to go play for. The Florida Panthers, for the longest time,
Here's the problem. Those teams are winning. Vegas is winning. LA is doing a little bit of winning right now. You're seeing Florida win. And so when those teams are also doing the winning, how the hell are you supposed to compete
they're doing
with
it
that?
now, but are they going to do it for like the rest of the NHL's history, right? Like, I don't think they are. At some point, they're going to go through a bit of a rebuild.
Florida's got a
and when
system
they do,
that
it's not
works.
going to be as sexy a place to go to.
I got to be honest, there are not going to be free agents that want to go play for the New York Rangers this offseason, because that team is going into Vancouver. You talk about how beautiful Vancouver is. Nobody wants to go play there now. So when Florida has their down spiral, which will happen at some point, sure, it's tax-free, and sure, it's the beach and it's sunny all the time. But if you're going into a 10-year rebuild, I don't want to be a part of that.
But at that point is, I don't know, Toronto back up? Is at that point New York, New Jersey, are they back up? Is Dallas back up? There are just so many other destinations that are tier 1 above you as a free agent destination first, that it's not just, if it was 1 or 2 organizations that we were talking about, that would be a different conversation. It's about 10 of them that are on the list above you. And so, yes, if you're doing the winning, that helps. That helps to sell your organization. It's still hard because you have to jump so many other places. And the other thing that can be a pull is, are you from here? That's how Minnesota gets so many of these guys, right? Like, there's a pull back to go home. That's what Toronto has. They have a pull back for so many of these guys to go home. That is one thing that St. Louis has going for it right now, is the youth hockey in this city is spectacular currently. And there are a lot of guys that are getting to the NHL level. And so maybe that becomes a new pipeline for them, is because they are producing players that get to the NHL. Maybe they would then want to come back home. Brady Tkachuk, come on back. Coming up next to Junk Drawer here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. I've got a question for you, Alex.
Oh, okay.
When you are doing like a dad's day, right? Dad's weekend, something like that. Your wife's out of town. You're in charge of the kids. What's your favorite thing to do with them?
Something out of the house. I have to be out of the house.
It's funny how that works, right?
Yeah, I can't be at home in that scenario. It's got to be a park, a zoo trip, going to lunch, going swimming. I have to do something. And typically I'll call my mom and dad or my sister to see if they want to go do something. Like, I need reinforcements because me with three. Yeah, me with three is not fun. But if it was just me and let's say I only had my first daughter, Adelaide, I mean, honestly, I would be fine staying at home. It's just finding something to occupy her and keep her entertained.
Kara's going out of town Friday. So she leaves late Thursday night. She'll be out of town Friday and Saturday. I'm joining her on Sunday. We're going up to New York with some family. I think I was telling you guys about this during one of the breaks. I think I'm going to try to find a trail in St. Louis to take Luca to on Saturday, potentially. He had so much fun when we went up to the mountains, and we were right next to this creek that goes down the side of the mountain. We were just sitting there like throwing rocks in. It's just a silly little thing, right? But he had so much fun with it. I think it's not something we've spent a lot of time doing around the area, but I think we're going to try to find a trail. And T-Bone, I know that's one of your favorite things in the world to do is just go hike.
Yeah, I know. You should see if T-Bone wants to go with you guys.
Yeah, no.
No?
I'm good.
You need your walk by yourself?
I don't want to have to be responsible for watching a 2-year-old.
That's what dads do. Dads will be like, hey, watch him for a minute, and I'll be back in an hour.
Yeah,
I
don't wanna
remember
do that.
Katie went to New York for a week a couple of years ago when it was me, Adelaide, and Emma before we had our third. And I planned out the entire week.
Did you?
We went to Purina Farms, we went to the zoo, we went to a pool. Like, we planned the entire week to where you tucker them out all day.
You were really cool, Dad.
Really cool dad. I was not the lame dad that enforces rules. I was the, hey, we're going to be fun. And then they went to bed at 7 o'clock. Daddy needs some alone time.
That's right. Daddy needs to go sit on the couch and drink a whiskey because we had a really long day together.
And honestly, like, as a parent, and I know so many parents listening right now will understand this, you need that. Like, there's got to be some type of you time. So, I mean, the park's a great idea, or a trail is a great idea, because not only does he ride bikes and do that stuff yet,
he has a bike, but it's got the 2 wheels, so
yeah,
it's almost like a motorcycle kind of situation.
But like, honestly though, just doing that, like, if you go to a trail and just put them on that and let them go, it's like, man, they're in heaven as long as they can just be out of the house.
Somebody said, go trout fishing at Merrimack Springs. Man, we ain't there. Maybe we'll get there eventually. He's 2. I don't think we're quite to the trout fishing place just
Adelaide
yet.
found a kid fishing pole in our garage that, like, we have to, like, when she goes fishing with Grandpa. She ripped it off the thing and flung it, and the hook caught me on my arm. And I looked at Katie and I go, I'm not fishing with her ever.
That sounds about right.
I'm not a fisher.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Coming up next, the injury updates yesterday do help to explain the thought process with Nolan Gorman. We'll talk about that next here on 101 ESPN. saw a video of Patrick Mahomes posted at OTAs today, Alex.
Yeah.
If he didn't have the knee brace on, you legitimately wouldn't know that 5 months ago he tore his ACL. Would have no idea. He's like spinning around, throwing the ball the same way that he always does. Then they threw a ball to him. He catches it and literally like jumps around and spins.
The freak of nature just continues his freak of nature stuff. Good thing his receivers will be ready to go at the beginning of the season if he is.
Rashee Rice?
Yeah. I mean, he's going to have his rehab really going where he needs it to be now that he's being Con-Aired everywhere that he needs to go.
Every time somebody says he's in jail, it makes me laugh a little bit.
I love. Did you see? Was it Underdog Twitter?
Receiver, he's in jail.
Underdog Twitter had him Rashee Rice, and then the parenthesis. Typically, they'll say like knee, right? It had knee, comma jail.
Can you imagine when we're doing fantasy football drafts and somebody takes him in the 8th round? You know he's in jail, right? Yeah, it's gonna be fine. He's gonna come back better than ever.
It's all good, bud.
It's like in the replacements when they get the guy from the Washington D.C. prison. I can't talk to T-Bone because he doesn't watch the film. And they unlock his wrists, and the guy's out talking to him, and he's like, we should probably go in, where people are around and can hear me scream. That's what it'll be like when Rashee shows up for the first day.
I could have faked my way through knowing that. Yeah.
I just need to stop telling you movies that you don't know the reference to.
Such a good one.
If it's in the 90s, early 2000s, just assume I didn't see it.
We know, buddy. We know.
Even Eric watches those films.
So yesterday there was an update on the Cardinals' injuries, and Alex, I do think they help to explain the current situation with Nolan Gorman a little better. Ollie pregame yesterday talked to the local media and basically said, hey, listen, like right now, this is the way we're operating with Gorman. That doesn't mean it's always going to be the case. He's eventually going to have to perform. And yesterday, of course, he hits a home run. Lars Noot playing 9 innings today for Memphis. He hit a home run earlier. He is an option for the Cardinals in their lineup on Friday. My guess, Lars Noot will be starting for you in left field on Friday night. Marmol yesterday also said that Nathan Church is expected to be at Memphis tomorrow. Ramon Urias is expected to be at Memphis very soon thereafter. So that means that Nathan Church is getting close. You're probably, 10 days away from Church's return? Something like that?
10 to 20, yeah.
You're starting tomorrow.
Same thing for Ramon Urias. You're expecting him at some point in the next couple of weeks as well. If those are your reinforcements that are coming, it doesn't make a ton of sense to then burn a 40-man roster move right now to call somebody up when you know you're going to have somebody else that's taking that spot on the roster a week or two later. I don't think that's enough runway for a guy like Blaze Jordan to get this opportunity if those guys are imminent in their return. If it was going to be multiple weeks still, 3 weeks plus, all right, now we're having a different conversation. But with those guys very close to their returns, I think that helps to explain why they're operating the way they are right now.
Yeah, it absolutely does, because I think you see the path for all three of those guys. Like Lars Noot, he's going to left field. I think when Nathan Church comes back, he's going to unseat Victor Scott for center field. And Urias, you assume he's going to be taking over a bulk of the work at third base. So it's always been the clear picture with this when we've had these conversations that it's like, look, if they think these guys are going to be back sooner rather than later, then yeah, you don't want to burn the 40-man. I think I still would have burned the 40-man on Blaze Jordan just to get, because you had the time to look at it for how long Urias has been out and how long Nolan Gorman has struggled. But at this point now, yeah, there's no point, because then they come back, you get a week or two of Blaze Jordan, and then it's just you're sending them right down and you've lost somebody in that system.
Do you agree, though? Yesterday was really the first time that I heard significant calls for the change. I thought that was the moment where the calls had grown so loud that it was hard to ignore. For Blaze to come up and immediately replace and start every day in place of Nolan Gorman.
I mean, I was saying it a week ago.
Really?
I feel like
Gorman struggled for the last 2 weeks, I think.
Yeah.
I just think
and
that
he's
a
just
lot of the way,
period.
Yeah, all season he's had no power.
I think the way that these teams operate, though, they typically fans get mad, and then a week or two later, the team starts to adjust accordingly. I thought, realistically speaking, yesterday was really the first time that we could have expected them to make any kind of significant change there.
I think it was the first time on Gorman specifically,
Correct.
but I think he was bunched together with the moves that came prior to the Cubs series.
I think Jordan
we
should have
talked
been with
about it. I mean,
Crooks.
there were three spots that we were talking about it that just weren't producing. It was center field where Baez is hitting and playing. It was the catcher position where Crooks was hitting and playing well, where you had Paez who wasn't. And then you also had at third base where they weren't hitting.
Yeah, 5 through 9.
And I think the move that they did where they finally gave a sacrificial lamb and Paez, quote unquote, that kind of calmed it down for a little bit. But I still think the noise was pretty loud for Gorman being grouped together with those
We've been
guys.
talking 5 through 9 in the batting order since since the Cincinnati Reds Pirates series. Like, we've been talking about it since, and 5 through 9 has been Gorman, Mason Wynn, Pedro Pajes, and Victor Scott, and then whomever else is playing in that other role. I mean, we were calling for all of those jobs because they weren't performing.
Paez was 1, Gorman was 2,
Yeah.
and because they gave
Scott's 2.
I think Gorman's 2.
You think Gorman is a bigger problem for them in their lineup than Scott?
No, but I think people were calling for the replacement more for Gorman than Victor Scott.
Really?
I think so.
Just because I don't think people were sure Baez could play center.
I think people know who the replacement for Scott is going to be, and it's going to be Church when he comes back.
I think the same thing is true for Nolan Gorman.
See, I don't think Urias is just coming in and starting every day.
I think he just
They didn't do that early in the year. I think it's a platoon bat. He can't hit right-handed pitching. Now, Gorman can't either, but
so
Urias
whatever.
can. I don't think it's Urias comes up here and he's playing every day. I would be shocked if that happened.
Interesting. If that's the case, what do? You just keep playing Gorman?
I think they're going to.
I do too.
And I think that's why he's become now number 1, now that they've kind of handled the Pajes situation.
Yeah. I think they've basically said, like, hey, man, he's good enough for us defensively. We know the bat's not working, but he'll figure this out. And now we're going to have Ramon Urias here to where he can jump in every once in a while to ease the tension. I think the move for Blaze could have been made a week and a half ago.
I think that's a 40-man thing, though.
Yeah, but I think that's fair. I mean, I think you could have done that.
I think there's guys
But
on
they
the 40-man.
weren't going to do that. No team would have done that. Giving up on Gorman a week and a half ago?
I think that's a little
That
aggressive.
would have been 40 games in.
I'm not saying, like, get rid of Gorman, but I
40
think there
games
are
on
teams
top
that
of
would
3
have done
seasons.
it. Yeah, I think there are teams that would have done it.
But in this season,
Yeah, I mean,
the Cardinals were playing well at that point.
But he
but he
wasn't.
wasn't.
He was hitting like
Sure.
067 for you.
No, I mean, on the
11 or
season,
12
he's been
games.
better than
no,
that.
but like in an 11 or 12 game stretch, he was hitting sub 100.
Now, but before then, we're talking about the team. If you're talking about like that Pittsburgh series, at that point, the Cardinals were 29-21. And you were feeling pretty good about where they were at. The offense had been pretty good recently. Now, Gorman's been struggling all year long. Don't get me wrong. I'm not somebody, I told you yesterday, I would advocate for them to make the change. I'm fine with it. But given where the organization is at right now, the way that they viewed this season coming in, and certainly the plan now with Ramon Urias coming back and Nathan Church, I think this all kind of makes sense to me.
I think 5 through 9 has been a problem for some time now, and it's just a matter of how did you want to fix it? And I agree with what T-Bone said. I think they looked at it as Jimmy Crooks will ease the tension for a lot of people. We have an easy out by just sending Pozo down and having Pajes become the third catcher. I just think I would have done the Blaze Jordan move earlier as well.
And I think that's fair. Because he's been hitting well, and if you wanted to make those
He's been doing what
improvements-
Crooks has been doing all season.
Yeah.
But not defensively.
Yeah,
Defensively is the question. And
But
I think
he's
it's
been
a fair-
fine defensively in AAA.
I haven't seen him. I don't know.
Well, that's I'm just
All
going
the
off
reports
of
suggest that guy is probably not a major league third baseman defensively.
totally, but he's making the plays in AAA, and if he's making the plays, you at least give it a shot. I'm not going to say you can't play at the major league level when you've got a 940 OPS and you've been clean defensively at third base if I think you're just not athletic enough.
I heard the same thing about Cesar Prieto.
But you called him up and,
it was
you
a
gave him a
disaster.
shot.
And it was
But
a
you
disaster.
But you gave him a shot.
Sure, he was on the 40-man already, and it was a disaster. And I think that's what gives me some pause about the whole thing with Blaze Jordan. If it's going to look like that, I'm calling him up, burning this 40-man roster move, basically DFAing somebody else for 2 weeks in a scenario where I just did that with Cesar Prieto, who was hitting basically as well, similar, at AAA to Blaze Jordan, and playing better defense at a more premium position, and the defense looks worse for him at the major league level. All of these things are legitimate concerns.
But you know what you're not asking for anymore? To see a Cesar Prieto. Because I would have done that with Blaze Jordan. If he's hitting 935 OPS and he's got some power and he can play a position where a guy is not hitting the baseball and he sucks defensively for 2 weeks and I burned a 40-man, so be it. But now I know, and now I can be done with the whole Blaze Jordan could play third base. No, now I know he's a first base DH and I don't have to worry about it anymore.
When Noot gets back, he's not in center field, right?
Better not be.
I was listening to TMA earlier today, and they talked about it as if that's like the plan. I was thinking to myself, what am I missing something? Like what? They didn't even want him to play center field last year when he was at least seemingly healthy because they were scared that he would get hurt in the event that he played center field in any sort of like consistent time. This year, he's coming back from some serious offseason surgery. I'm not even sure he's going to be playing 3 days in a row. Like this weekend, they've got a day game on Saturday after a night game. I think there's a chance he is off on Saturday after playing on Friday night. And then he gets back in there on Sunday for the Cardinals as well. I would be pretty shocked if he plays, I don't know, more than once out of every 10 days or so in center field.
I'm 100% with you. I think that's a terrible idea to play him in center field, and I know you have a need for it, but Lars Nootbaar has a tendency of getting injured, and if I'm the Cardinals, one of two things. One, I need his bat in the lineup to help lengthen things so that 5 through 9 can stop being a conversation, and two, it's probably one of my best commodities to use at the trade deadline if I decide to move pieces. He can't get injured from diving for a ball in center field, which he has done before in one of the corner outfield spots. Fluke injury, broke a rib diving for a baseball.
Yeah, but he landed on it, right? Like, what are the odds he does that again?
Do you really want to take a chance?
Mine's more just the ground that you have to cover and more
I'd say
mileage.
My answer today would be no. He probably doesn't play a game in center field for the St. Louis Cardinals. Would I rule it out completely? No, because if he comes back and looks like old Nootbaar, where he looks athletic and he can make good plays out in the corner, and eventually Baez continues to knock on the door, I can see where they go, man, we didn't get answers from Scott in center. Church ended up not doing anything when he came back from injury. Torres, we don't really like in center field. Could we go Noot in center and call up Baez at some point? Maybe they would consider that. Again, I think that's like 5% outcome. Yeah, I think that's like a 5% outcome.
All of the things you just said, that requires us to get to like mid-July or August before we even have that conversation. Because you mentioned Church coming back and taking that opportunity in center field, which is still a couple of weeks away. That's mid-June. You're going to give him some runway. Now we're into earlier mid-July.
Yeah, by then, Nootbaar might not even be here.
I said at the beginning of that, I said my bet today would be he plays 0 games in center field. I do think there's like a 5% chance so that they could go with it, but it's going to take all of those scenarios that we just laid out before they would even consider it, in my opinion.
Walrus King makes a good point in the YouTube chat. If Nuke needs a day off, T-Bone can kind of hold on the fort because he could play center field.
He could also hit a 100-mile-an-hour fastball. Coming up next, more likely to happen here on 101 ESPN. Ooh, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for more likely to happen. You give us 2 scenarios. We'll tell you which one is more likely. More likely to happen today, Alex. Jose Fermin starts in center field or Pedro Pages starts at first base.
I'll say Jose Fermin starts in center field. And there's got to be some type of punishment to Victor Scott for not getting that bunt down.
I'll say Fermin in center. I don't know that it'll be punishment for not getting the bunt down, but I just don't know if they feel confident about playing Pages at first base.
Especially on a Palante day, ground ball pitcher.
For sure.
I think it's going to be Fermin in center as well.
He's played there 3 times at the major league level and had 1 double play. Looked that up earlier today. I hope I'm right.
I think he had 3 at-bats at the Major League level.
No, it's at 3 games defensively at first base, and he made 1 double play.
That was probably like September last year.
He's also
when we
played
weren't paying
a game
attention.
at second base. That doesn't tell me that he can play there.
Hey, man.
I
Anybody
guess technically can.
Anybody can
should.
play first base. Tell him, Wash. Oh, do I have one here? Okay, guys. More likely to happen. You'll watch the entirety of the new All-Star game that the NHL is putting together, or All-Star Weekend,
Whatever option 2
or
is.
you'll watch the entirety of the next NBA All-Star game.
Probably the next NBA All-Star game. If you want me to be honest.
I'd probably watch the NHL over the NBA. 2 that I always miss with on purpose, NBA and the NFL.
Both suck. I would say I'd watch the NHL just because the NBA, look, they already walk around, don't play defense. Now imagine their All-Star game when they're really giving no effort.
The one thing that they did right in this new format that I liked was the young player skills competition.
We should mention what they're doing. They're going to like a 4 nations type of a movement with a 5th nation, I guess. That's others,
This is
which seems to include, hey, Russia, we're going to include you without officially including you, please.
Russia, Slovakia, all of those get to kind of be thrown in. But
So I think what they might be doing here, Alex, this is my concern. They might be going too far into this to where it actually takes away from the real 4 nations face-off. And they just continue to go back to that well where every year now you're getting international competition. It's not quite as meaningful for fans when you see it every year as it is when it's a one-off every 2 to 4 years. So that is my concern about the way they're going about this.
Yeah, I like I said, so they have a skills competition on the first day of it. That's just going to be players 25 or younger, and it kind of leads up to a tournament to where it's the shootout. That will be great. I think where they missed the boat is making a 3-on-3. I just don't think the 3-on-3 works. I think the nations thing is good because it creates that interest and rooting interest, I think, USA versus everybody else, and you get that brand of talent versus watching the in divisions, which nobody cares about. I do agree with you that it's like you guys are just trying to do this too much. Honestly, just
do East versus West.
Make it 5-on-5.
Yeah.
Make it 5-on-5 so that it's at least entertaining, or scrap the whole thing and just do young player stuff. Because I think the youth stuff would be as entertaining to where other guys get the All-Star. Nobody cares about the All-Star weekend. Just forget about it and focus, because the All-Star.
I do think it's a good way to sell your game, though, where you get to see
But
best
typically
players
the best
in the game.
players in this don't want to play in it.
I say, and
Understood.
is it best when you already did the hard part, which was finding something that works for this slot, which was the 4 nations tournament. So to go from that to we're going back to an All-Star game where nobody tries and they just skate around and glide around.
All this is going to do is make people just want the 2028 World Cup happen faster.
Understood, but it's only once every 4 years that you have to do this. I think it's fine.
You
got the
wouldn't do
4
it.
nations.
There's no need to. Well, let me rephrase it.
You have
They
to
would
do
claim
it.
there's a
Money
reason
out
to
of
do
it.
Yeah, you have to do it.
At some point, these leagues are going to have to come to a point of we just scrap these. Nobody wants
What's
them.
going to happen is a lot of the
People
players will
do.
back out.
TV networks want it. I understand, T-Bone, you don't have to watch.
I'm
That's
not
fine.
just saying that from my perspective, by the way.
You
I'm saying
are,
it because
though.
the ratings are down significantly on all
The
of these.
ratings
Yes,
drop
but
on
the
these.
TV networks continue to want them. And if they continue to pay for this game to be broadcast on their networks, there's no reason for the league to say no. And there's also no reason for the players to say no to it, because they get a percentage of that revenue.
They will continue to happen without question. They're just not entertaining. And there's no way to make an All-Star weekend entertaining. And you just need to come to terms with that.
You know who likes the All-Star weekend? My son. My son thinks the All-Star weekend is cool.
Yeah, well,
that's who you're selling this to, is young kids that don't care that it's not quite the same level of play and that they're not playing defense the way that they did in the regular season or the playoffs. It's the kids that you're trying to sell the game to, that you're trying to get them into hockey for the next 30 years.
Yep.
And if you can do that, the weekend has served its purpose.
And it's the city that you're doing it in, because you will sell out that because you get to go see an All-Star game.
T-Bone?
Guys more likely to finish at or above league average this season. Mason Wynn or Nolan Gorman?
Mason win. I think he's going to get more opportunities to do it.
Fair.
I also think he's just a better hitter.
I'm not as sure on that.
Than Gorman?
Yeah, I would say potentially Gorman, because if he can find the power stroke, he'll be able to get at or above league average. Wynn's got no power. I mean, he doesn't hit the ball hard. He's a slap singles hitter. And it's hard for those guys to finish at or above league average. You have to hit for really good average. And I don't know that he's going to do that. So my bet today would be Gorman. Now, to your point on the opportunities, fair. I don't know that he's going to get more opportunities when Urias comes back.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for more likely to happen. We'll get to a couple of these before we get to Doug Armstrong's comments from yesterday here in just a moment. From the 314, more likely to happen. T-Bone hits 100-mile-an-hour fastball or the Cardinals win the NL pennant?
Cardinals win the NL pennant.
100%.
No way. They're at like
Cardinals
0% chance of that. I've got like 0.1%
From the
chance.
636.
Win the World Series before T-Bone
More
could do
likely,
that.
T-Bone strikes out in a major league at-bat or he strikes out on Tinder.
Ooh.
Yes.
Yes to both. T-Bone
Yeah,
strikes
major league
out
at
on-
bat, I definitely would strike out because all I said was just getting a piece of a 100-mile-an-hour fastball. I can't imagine what those guys go through planning for 6 or 7 pitches.
Better question is what's harder, not striking out in a major league at bat or getting a date on Tinder?
I would think getting an at bat in the major league.
Honestly, I could agree with that.
From the 636, more likely to happen. The team that goes down 0-1 in the NBA and Stanley Cup Finals comes back to win, or both series end in 6 games. Say both series end in 6 games seems very realistic, so I'll go that one.
Yeah, I would too. Because I think Vegas wins in 6. So I don't see Carolina coming back. And then I think the Spurs are going to win in 5 or 6. So, yeah, I would say that option.
Yeah, I'm probably that one. I think Carolina wins in 6, and I could see the NBA going 6.
Last one here, more likely to happen, more likely to become a Blue, Jason Robertson or Brady Tkachuk? Sounds like Jason Robertson is expected to sign a $14 million contract per year with the Stars, so I'll go Brady.
Yeah, Brady Tkachuk.
I would say Brady as well because it does sound like the Stars are going to get that done with Robertson.
Coming up next, nobody wants the Blues to pick 3 times in the first round this year, but it sure sounds like Doug Armstrong is at least open to that idea. We'll tell you the latest comments from him next year on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario back with you to talk about my friends out at Classic Air Care, the company that has been making people comfortable since 1926. And it comes to that HVAC system. Now is the time to get your tune-up. And right now, you just give them a call. You let them know that, hey, look, we just want to have it checked out before the summer really kicks in. Classic Air Care gets you on the schedule immediately. They'll get back to you within 24 hours to get you on the schedule because they've got 100 vans that are out on the road. And on top of that, you're getting 5-star service with thousands of 5-star reviews up on their Google Plus page. You get technicians that have been doing this job for 30 plus years that can give you the information that makes that HVAC system last longer for you. All of those things are why you want to use a company that's out to take care of you. I've been using them since 2016. My dad has been using them since he can remember owning a home, and that's because of Classic Air Care service. So call them today. Check them out online. You could see their 5-star comments that they've got on the reviews, like this one from Zach. Brady was great. Helped me understand my filters and why they're not lasting long enough. Had it fixed within 10 minutes. These are the company that I'll be using for future issues. Call them today. Schedule online. Tell them Alex Ferrario sent you. Classic Air Care and classicaircare.com.
Tanner Henderickson here with the Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Cardinals back in action tonight as they try to salvage a game in this three-game set with the Texas Rangers. Mackenzie Gore will be on the mound for Texas. Andre Palante gets the start for St. Louis. 6:45 will be first pitch tonight. And tonight here on 101 ESPN, Game 1 of the NBA Finals will have pregame coverage starting at 6:30 with tip-off at 7:30. The Sports Center update was brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
You guys remember the Nick Castellanos conversation from the offseason?
Yeah.
DFA'd.
Nah.
Officially DFA'd by the San Diego Padres. In 40 games for them this season, he had 120 plate appearances and hit 190.
Yep. Yep. I saw him play that corner outfield spot against the Cardinals, so I don't want to
say with his defense, he's a negative WAR.
Sure is. Yep, he's been worth less wins above replacement on the season than Nolan Gorman. Worse defensively and offensively than Nolan Gorman.
Honestly, I'd rather have Nolan Gorman in the outfield than Nick Castellanos.
I agree. That did not go well for him in San Diego. It was, in my opinion, worth a flyer. It worked out incredibly poorly.
So now Castellanos is headed to the Japanese League, you think? Or does somebody else give him a shot?
Somebody will give him a shot.
Dodgers.
I wonder where he ends up
Dodgers
going.
say screw it.
I could see him going to a bad team.
Mets.
Oh, God.
Another bad
Something
team.
like that. A team that's dealing with injuries and says, you know what, screw it. Yeah, we'll go ahead and take the bat, see if it works out for us. Honestly, Kansas City, their offense has been dreadful.
You going to get a Castellanos Royals jersey if he goes there?
I mean, they've got to try something. They're awful.
Let's learn our lesson on the Royals in that ballpark. Let's not go after a guy who doesn't have power anymore to put him in like the biggest ballpark in baseball.
And can't play the outfield.
Yeah, that would be dumb.
It would be a disaster, but most of what they've done has been a disaster.
Bobby,
Cincinnati should take a shot on him. I mean, I don't know if they've got a spot in the outfield for him, but small park, why not?
Castellanos back in Cincinnati, man.
Yeah, it'd be great.
And there's a deep fly to left field.
All right, so
You
Doug
wanna hit
Armstrong.
Yes, he was. I don't think you can go back to Cincinnati if you're him.
Take two. Doug Armstrong talked to Jeremy Rutherford yesterday for a piece that's written right now over at The Athletic, and the following was stated, quote, "You prepare for opportunities, understanding there might be none," end quote. The Blues, from Jeremy Rutherford, have picks number 11, 15, and 29 in the opening round. There has been great speculation already about what it might take to trade up, perhaps as high as to the San Jose Sharks pick at number 2 overall. Ivar Stenberg, a highly rated winger, and the younger brother of Otto Stenberg could be available there. Army was then asked about, what is the likelihood that you could make some kind of a move. He said, in my experience, is trading up and trading back right now is more media driven. These things don't really happen until about 48 hours before the draft when all of the information is in. Now, I will say... now I'll say that, and then one of the top 2 picks will be traded in about an hour.
It didn't. Good
But
job, Doug.
those happen way closer to the draft, so I don't put a whole lot of stock in moving up or moving back until you're almost a week until the draft. He then basically said, hey, listen, it's possible we take 3 picks. We pick at 11, 15, and 29. Alex, what do you think is the likelihood of that?
I think they make a move with one or multiple picks. Like, I was thinking about this, and he's right. Like, this is a deadline league. Nobody is going to make a move until the combine's done, until they see every player that's going to be available, which means you got to see who loses the Stanley Cup final. Vegas is going to be selling off pieces because they got to get cap compliant. If Carolina loses, they're going to be looking to upgrade. Everyone needs to have a clear picture of what they want to do. And frankly, teams don't like to make moves until you get to a deadline, and that's what the draft day is. But, I was thinking back to when the Blues were aggressive in that 2018 draft. That's when they traded for Braden Shen. They said, we need help now, so let's use the assets that we have and go out there. They traded a first-round pick and a third-round pick in that year's draft and then another first-round pick in another year's draft. I think there will be a team that looks at it and says, we want more picks in this draft so we can trade an NHL player. And I think the Blues are trying to be aggressive to get help now. So there's a real chance that they do take all 3 picks, but I still believe that if they're going to be aggressive, which Doug said in that article, he and Steen are going to be as aggressive as they can be. I think that's where you look at it and say they're not going to make all 3 picks. It feels different this year compared to in 2023 when I was thinking that they weren't going to make all those picks. But in reality, that was the start of what they were trying to do in asset accumulation mode.
Yeah, my gut tells me today that if they are moving picks, because I would lean towards they're making all three, but if they're not going to, it is not to trade up in the draft, it's to trade for NHL help, right? Or it's like doing a NHL hockey trade, right? Where it is you send Kyrou in a first somewhere, you get a player in return and a first maybe back in it as well. I don't think they're moving up in the draft because I think they're going to see this as the top four is pretty much set. It seems like San Jose knows who they want. They don't want to trade out of that 2 spot, and if they do, they don't want to drop below 4. And then if the draft falls the way that people seem to think it's going to, Stenberg's going to Chicago. And then I don't get the sense that they want to move up to 5. I know he made some reference to, well, if you have a board of 5 players you really like, and then maybe you consider it. I think he was just using that as a reference point than anything else. So I think if they're going to trade picks, it's not to move up in the draft, it's to get some NHL-ready help.
I think they're more likely to make all 3 of those picks than they are to trade them. Because it's just harder to move on from these picks than I think people want to give it credit for. That's typically something we see more of during the trade deadline. I think that's kind of when you see typically a lot of these draft picks changing hands as opposed to the offseason. So I think it's a fun idea. I would like to see them make a move with one of those picks or multiple of those picks, whether it's moving up or trading it for a player, whatever. I think they're more likely to end up with 3 new prospects that are part of their system. And I think we're going to be really excited about the players that they're able to add to their system in the event that they do make all 3 of them. I think that's the most likely outcome here.
Probably. And, I will be excited to see who they draft if they take specifically at 11 and 15. I look at where they're deficient. And when we had him on and when we had him on the podcast, he said that the center spot is where they're weakest in their system. I think those pieces can be assets to get you a center. It's just a question of what center is available.
Another question about that is which one would they be interested in? David Pagnotta is talking again, Alex.
Hell yes.
He said the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Winnipeg Jets, and the St. Louis Blues are among the teams with interest in forward Mason McTavish. McTavish is 23 years old. He's a third liner for the Anaheim Ducks. He has been bumped down to the 4th line at times and has been a healthy scratch at times, I think in the postseason. Actually,
2 times, I think.
He was relatively productive, though. Over the last few seasons, a consistent 15 to 20 goal scorer, about 50-point producer for them. Also, genuinely awful defensively.
Terrible defensively.
Truly horrific defensively. Maybe is better on the wing than he is at the center position, but can play center. And again, he's only 23 years old. He is signed for another 5 years at $7 million per year. Alex, is this a guy that you have legit interest in for the Blues?
No. I think originally I was looking into it and being like, yeah, it would make sense, but he's a younger Pavel Buchnevich and a worse defensive player. Like, at least Pavel Buchnevich, what he has going for him is he's very good defensively. Like, this guy is not good defensively. He's probably at best a 20-goal scorer. And I seriously question when a Hall of Fame coach, you cannot like the person, but the mind is still great. Joel Quenneville as a coach said, this guy is not valuable to me in the playoffs. So if he's not a winning player for the Anaheim Ducks who are trying to win, then I don't know why he would be a part of your future moving forward. So I wouldn't trade the assets necessary to get him. I would look elsewhere.
I'd try it. He's 23 years old. He can play the center position. He's got some size to him. You're deficient there. You have basically nothing coming through your system. I know it's maybe a little more expensive than what you'd like to have at $7 million. I also think that's going to mean that the asking price to trade for him is going to be a little lower than what you otherwise would expect. I think he's the kind of guy that I would be targeting. If it's him or Shane Wright, for example, given what the asking price will be for Shane Wright in terms of the prospect pedigree or the player pick, whatever that you're going to have to give up for him, I think I'd probably go the Mason McTavish.
Yeah, I'd go to Shane Wright.
Because of the price that's associated with each
I'd go to Shane Wright, and I don't know if the price is going to be very high for Shane Wright because teams know where he's at and how he's utilized. I think the difference is the cheap, cost-controlled versus the expensive. Frankly, I wouldn't do either of them. I would be looking elsewhere for the center help, and that's just a matter of who becomes available.
Yeah, that's hard to know.
That's the hardest
point
thing
in the offseason. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. By the way, Blaze Jordan hit another home run. I'm sure that it'll be totally fine, and nobody will mention that when we get to the end of this show. We'll get the rewind next here on 101 ESPN. If you guys missed anything from today's show, be sure to check it out on the podcast page. 101ESPN.com and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. It's all sponsored by
Shea Fedora Company.
I'm fascinated to see the lineup. I'm going to be playing the lineup game along with the fast lane today because I don't know how they're going to go with this thing. I think you will see...
Not enough time for this, man.
I think you're going to see Gorman in the lineup today.
I agree.
And I think that's going to really frustrate a lot of people. I also think there's a chance Pajes is playing first base today.
Hell yeah, and Ferrario will be right.
I'm very curious to see the direction that they decide to go. I think Vasquez is probably going to be batting designated hitter, and he's probably going to be batting cleanup for you today. So it'll be fun to see. You guys got a Cardinals win? They get off the schneid?
No, they're going against a lefty, I think.
No, I think they lose.
I think it's a sweep.
I think they find a way to get a win tonight. We'll break it down tomorrow. The Fast Lane's next year on 101 ESPN.